Chapter 824. Thank you for sending the permanent essence pills. As soon as the middle stage eternal cultivator came in, Ning Cheng stood up with a smile. The eternal cultivator sighed, "You're too greedy. Otherwise, you would have had a chance to escape. My name is Lu Bingson, remember it." Ning Cheng spoke up calmly, "Even if I'm not greedy, I can't escape. This father already knew about Traceless Immortal Pond when I entered the Traceless Gate. It would be strange if Traceless Immortal Pond would let a cultivator who bought a jade strip and doubted Traceless Immortal Pond walk out of here." Lu Bingson froze when he heard Ning Cheng's words. What kind of rhythm was this? "You know." After a few breaths, Lu Bingson subconsciously asked. Ning Cheng looked at Lu Bingson with a meaningful look. "What do you think? I have a lot of things to do and don't want to waste time here. Unfortunately, you came looking for me." If Lu Bingson didn't know that Ning Cheng had nothing to fear, he would be a fool. He instantly threw out a fiery red flying sword, and at the same time, his domain pressed down on Ning Cheng. At the same time, he also brought out a round weapon. Since Ning Cheng knew about this and still dared to stay here, it meant that he had nothing to fear. If Lu Bingson didn't call for help, he would only be courting death. Ning Cheng didn't stop Lu Bingson from calling for help. But what Lu Bingson didn't know was that whether he called for help or not, he would still die. His domain pressing down on Ning Cheng felt like ice and snow meeting a flame. As soon as it touched Ning Cheng's domain, it exploded and turned into nothingness. Lu Bingson felt shocked. He knew that Ning Cheng hadn't released his domain's imposing manner at all. But even in such a situation, he couldn't resist the suppression. From this, it could be seen that he wasn't Ning Cheng's opponent. Lu Bingson didn't even have time to take back the weapon he used to attack Ning Cheng and immediately tried to retreat. At this time, Ning Cheng's celestial rainbow purgatory spear tore through the void between the two, and the powerful spear intent directly enveloped Lu Bingson. Before Lu Bingson could react, the long spear had already pierced through his body. Laws of space. Lu Bingson fell to the ground. He didn't even have the chance to escape with his essence spirit. He knew that even if his essence spirit escaped, he would only die again. The moment he fell, he knew that Traceless Immortal Pond was in trouble. If one often walks by the river, one's shoes will indeed get wet. Back in the Traceless Immortal Pond, he had just touched upon the laws of space. But Ning Cheng's usage of the laws of space had already reached a high level. Ning Cheng also couldn't believe his eyes as he looked at the long spear in his hands. He was prepared to use Traceless to kill Lu Bingson. Lu Bingson, a fellow who had just advanced to the middle stage eternal realm, couldn't stop his spear, which was within his expectations. To his surprise, his spatial laws automatically merged with Traceless, making Traceless even more traceless. It turned out that Ning Cheng's Traceless spirit technique came from observing someone else's spear. Therefore, he knew that that spear contained the laws of space. Although he didn't understand the laws of space in the past, he could use his spiritual consciousness and celestial essence to make the trajectory of his spear cross the spatial distance between him and his opponent in the shortest time. No matter how short it was, there was still time. But today, when he used Traceless, he actually fused it with his space mystique and completely melted the trajectory of his spear. He simply ignored the void space between him and Lu Bingson and killed Lu Bingson with a single spear strike. Ning Cheng put away Lu Bingson's ring and quickly threw out dozens of array flags. The moment he threw out the array flags, two figures rushed in. These were two of the 4 eternal cultivators who had come to pick up Princess Man. One was a late-stage eternal cultivator, and the other was a middle-stage eternal cultivator. Traceless Immortal Pond really has a lot of eternal ants. Ning Cheng spoke with sarcasm. The cultivators who could come to Traceless Gate were naturally powerhouses among powerhouses. Which one of these powerhouses didn't have amazing wealth? These powerhouses came from various starry skies, so what treasures did they not have? Traceless Immortal Pond opened a black shop and took the wealth of these powerhouses for themselves. It was impossible for them not to be powerful. You killed Elder Bingson? The middle stage eternal cultivator looked at Lu Bingson, who had fallen to the ground, in shock and couldn't believe it. He immediately brought out a weapon. Since Ning Cheng could kill Lu Bingson, he naturally could kill him. However, the late-stage Eternal Cultivator immediately activated the killing array around the guest hall as soon as he came in. He understood that Traceless Immortal Pond had kicked an iron plate this time. It wasn't that Traceless Immortal Pond hadn't kicked an iron plate before. Once, they even lost 3 Eternal Cultivators. However, they still managed to kill a powerhouse with the array formation and obtained 12 Eternal Emperor Continuance pills from that powerhouse. As soon as the killing array activated, the 2 Eternal Cultivators lost track of Ning Qing. The middle stage Eternal Cultivator spoke up in shock. Elder Kuei, this doesn't seem right. He should have lost track of us after activating the killing array. How come we lost track of him? Ning Cheng's cold voice came over. You're right. Next time, remember not to rely on the Tao of arrays to fight against others. I was wrong. There won't be a next time. Following Ning Cheng's voice, endless spatial blade lights bombarded the killing array. Not only did the 2 Eternal Cultivators' spiritual consciousnesses get suppressed by the killing array, but even their celestial essence also got suppressed by it. Facing so many spatial blade lights, the 2 had no choice but to bring out weapons to block them. At this moment, they didn't even know where Ning Cheng was, so how could they attack Ning Cheng? A poignant setting sun appeared in front of the 2, leaving them in a daze. Although they weren't the ones who arranged the killing array around the guest hall, it belonged to Traceless Immortal Pond. The 2 naturally understood that this killing array didn't contain any beautiful scenery like the setting sun. Elder Kuei, something's wrong. I can't break free. The middle stage Eternal Cultivator exclaimed. Not to mention that they were trapped by the killing array. Even without the killing array, they couldn't break free from Ning Cheng Sunset's twilight. Besides, Ning Cheng was an array emperor who was infinitely close to becoming an array Tao master. With him personally controlling the array formation to bind these 2, it would have been a strange thing if these 2 could break free. How could Elder Kuei have time to care about this middle stage Eternal Cultivator? When the setting sun appeared, and everything around him came to a standstill, he knew that it was over. This was a laws of time-related spirit technique, a spirit technique that could bind his laws of time-related spirit technique. He might only have one end, that is, waiting for death. He had advanced to the late-stage eternal realm in Traceless Immortal Pond, so he naturally didn't want to wait for death. But at this moment, why would he care about the killing lights and spatial blade lights in the killing array? He only knew that he had to crazily burn his essence blood and lifespan. As long as he could break free, he would immediately escape as far as he could. Was he an elder of Traceless Immortal Pond? Fuck off to the side. Perhaps even Zhangkong Tianji of Demon Domain wouldn't dare to offend such an expert. Traceless Immortal Pond wanted to die, but he didn't want to die. Ning Cheng's slightly soft voice transmitted over, "This elder, do you want to leave? Wait until you eat this spear." "Don't do it. I'll do anything you want me to." Elder Kuei was scared out of his wits. The little bit of imposing aura he had just stirred up dissipated without a trace. The next moment, the celestial rainbow purgatory spear's light-colored spear shadow pierced through his glabella, and a bright red flower of blood blossomed within the killing array. The middle-stage eternal cultivator, bound by Ning Cheng Sunset's twilight, turned completely sluggish when he saw the bright red flower of blood. Ning Cheng didn't even need to do anything. Countless killing lights within the killing array had already entered his body. Only that scream showed that he still had a bit of consciousness. Chuman greets sect master, greets master. Zhai Chuman walked into a slightly dimly lit room and bowed. Some low-pitched, strange music filled the room, making Zhai Chuman feel a little unnatural. Even if she was a sacred lady, she didn't come into this room many times. At the top of the room sat a middle-aged man with a white face. This middle-aged man had long hair, even longer than Zhai Chuman's. On the lower right side of this middle-aged man sat an extremely beautiful female cultivator. In terms of looks alone, this female cultivator didn't lose out to Zhai Chuman. But if one looked at the mature womanly charm emanating from her, she might even be more attractive than Zhai Chuman. This middle-aged man was Traceless Immortal Pond's sect master Wu Yuan Kong, and the female cultivator sitting next to him was Zhai Chuman's master, Pu Yinxiang. After Zhai Chuman greeted her, Pu Yinxiang gave an but didn't speak. Wu Yuankong looked at Zhai Chuman from top to bottom for a while before nodding with satisfaction. Men, you advanced to the eternal realm in Traceless Gate and even cultivated to the middle stage eternal realm. You didn't let me down. My Traceless Immortal Pond will have to rely on you in the future. Zhai Chuman quickly replied. Chuman, as the Traceless Immortal Pond's sacred lady, wouldn't dare to neglect it. After saying this, Zhai Chuman hesitated for a moment but still spoke up. Sect Master, the Immortal Pond even offered 100 million permanent essence pills as a reward for me. Isn't that too much? Wu Yuankong showed a slight smile. Chuman, you're already at the middle stage eternal realm. There are some things I should tell you. As Wu Yuankong spoke till here, he glanced at Zhai Chuman's master, Pu Yinxiang. Pu Yinxiang nodded and spoke with a soft voice. Chuman, do you know about the realm above the eternal realm? Zhai Chuman hesitated for a moment but still nodded. I've heard about it. After cultivators reach the eternal realm, there's a higher realm. That's Tao-confirming realm. Wu Yuankong followed with a sigh. How many cultivators cultivating in this side of space know that even if we cultivate to the full circle of the eternal realm, even if we succeed in Tao-confirming realm, we still haven't set foot in the world of powerhouses? Seeing the surprise on Zhai Chuman's face after hearing the words, Pu Yinxiang spoke up even more softly. Chuman, you don't have to worry. Maybe no one in the 4 grand starry skies can leave this side of the world, but my Traceless Immortal Pond can. The first sect master of Traceless Immortal Pond left this side of the world and went to a higher level positional plane. The reason why my Traceless Immortal Pond can do what others can't is not only because of our Traceless Gate, but also because of our endless top-grade cultivation methods and cultivation resources. Zhai Chuman naturally knew about this. Every cultivator who entered Traceless Immortal Pond had to pay a lot of permanent essence pills. Therefore, Traceless Immortal Pond naturally had a lot of wealth. Not only did she know about this, but in the 4 grand starry skies, who didn't know about Traceless Immortal Pond's wealth? What she wanted to know was who the first sect master to enter a higher level positional plane was. Although she had been a sacred lady for a long time, she didn't know much about it. Master, who was the first sect master of my Traceless Immortal Pond? Zhai Chuman not only wanted to know, but also asked. Chapter 825. His name is Bai Ziding. You might not know this name, but you should know Taoist Crow. Wu Yuankong took the initiative to answer Zhai Chuman's question. Zhai Chuman immediately nodded. I know about Taoist Crow. He reached Tao confirming on Crow Star and is famous throughout the 4 grand starry skies. The matter of Taoist Crow reaching the Tao confirming realm on the Crow Star, as well as the fact that his descendants ended up stranded in the ancient Desolace abandoned land from the Crow Star, was a well-known matter throughout the starry skies. Even if Zhai Chuman did not care about the outside world, she had also heard about it. Wu Yuankong spoke up. Sect Master Bai's first enemy is Taoist Crow. Perhaps in Taoist Crow's eyes, my Traceless Immortal Pond's first sect master is also his life and death enemy. Despite being chased by Sect Master Bai, he was still able to hide on the Crow Star to prove his Tao. If Ning Cheng were here and heard these words, he would naturally remember who Bai Ziding was. When he first obtained Taoist Crow's things, Taoist Crow had left him a message. As for how Taoist Crow and Bai Ziding became enemies, Taoist Crow did not leave behind a single word. Zhai Chuman never expected that Taoist Crow, the person she worshipped the most, would turn out to be the enemy of Traceless Immortal Pond's first sect master. I'll tell you about this later. I'm telling you this to let you know that anyone from my Traceless Immortal Pond has the opportunity to rush out of this side of space and head to the positional planes of the true powerhouses for cultivation. Of course, the premise is that we must occupy the Traceless Gate and have access to countless cultivation resources. Wu Yuankong's tone turned solemn. Zhai Chuman nodded. I know. My Traceless Immortal Pond guards the Traceless Gate. Cultivators who come in naturally have to pay permanent essence pills. I will definitely help Traceless Immortal Pond protect the Traceless Gate. I will not let Sect Master down. Chuman, it's not just that. Once someone tries to harm the interests of my traceless immortal pond, we can't let them go. Even the person who brought you out of the traceless gate is the same. You must remember, at all times, the interests of the sect are above everything else. Pu Yinxiang's gentle tone also became solemn. Zhai Chuman looked at the sect master and master in front of her in confusion. After a while, she hesitantly asked, "Master, are you saying that the 100 million permanent essence pills reward to Ning Cheng is fake? In fact, does our traceless immortal pond want to keep him here?" She was not a fool. She had her doubts before. Now that her master had spoken so bluntly, she would be too slow if she still didn't suspect it. Even so, Zhai Chuman didn't dare to directly question the sect master, and her gaze fell on her master. Pu Yinxiang nodded and spoke. "That's right, that Ning Cheng did not have any good intentions. You can take a look at the recording of the monitoring array." After saying that, Pu Yinxiang waved her hand, and a huge array formation monitoring screen appeared on the opposite wall. The array formation monitoring screen recorded the conversation between Ning Cheng and several other cultivators when he first entered the traceless gate. After the conversation on the array formation monitoring screen ended, Pu Yinxiang spoke up. "When that Ning Cheng entered the traceless gate, he already suspected our traceless immortal pond. Once he got out, he would definitely spread the news. At that time, not to mention my traceless immortal pond's cultivators entering higher-level positional planes, I'm afraid that we would become the enemies of the entire starry sky. Now you don't have to think about that Ning Cheng anymore. Presumably this person has long since disappeared." Zhai Chuman looked at sect master and her master in disbelief. Previously, when her master said that traceless immortal pond had endless wealth, she didn't care about it. She thought that her master meant that traceless immortal pond had so much wealth because it guarded the traceless gate. But now, she finally understood what her master meant. Traceless immortal pond indeed had so much wealth because it guarded the traceless gate. But unlike what she thought, traceless immortal pond's guards were black-hearted, and their wealth wasn't clean. Any cultivator who exposed their wealth in traceless immortal pond would most likely be caught by traceless immortal pond in one fell swoop. As a result, traceless immortal pond had no choice but to become the wealthiest sect. But this wasn't the most shocking news Zhai Chuman heard. When Zhai Chuman couldn't believe it, Pu Yinxiang continued, "Chuman, because you lost in the traceless gate, you still don't know many things. Now that you've advanced to the eternal realm, you will have to give up the position of sacred lady. Then, like me, you will become the decision-maker of traceless immortal pond." Wu Yuankong looked at Zhai Chuman softly and said, "Man, after dual cultivation with me, you can rest assured and go into secluded cultivation. I will let you successfully reach Dao confirming realm, and then..." Only then did Zhai Chuman wake up. She even forgot about traceless immortal pond's black shop and asked in surprise, "Master, you mean?" Pu Yinxiang nodded. "Yes, Chuman. All sacred ladies of traceless immortal pond must have dual cultivation with sect master. You're not the first, nor will you be the last." Zhai Chuman froze. She finally understood why her master was the last sacred lady, and why she stayed in secluded cultivation with sect master. She also finally understood why she cultivated that extremely weird pure Yin cultivation method from the beginning. It turned out that it was to serve sect master. Pu Yinxiang's voice suddenly reached Zhai Chuman's ears. "Chuman, the cultivation method we cultivate actually has another name, called wedding dress. Master is sorry that I didn't tell you immediately. But after dual cultivation with sect master, we still have a chance to reach Dao confirming realm." Wedding dress, wedding dress. Zhai Chuman finally understood. No wonder she always felt that her cultivation method was a bit weird. It turned out that her cultivation method was a wedding dress. Pu Yinxiang sighed and stood up. She was about to leave. Sect master wanted to dual cultivate with her disciple and let her disciple's wedding dress technique serve sect master. She didn't want to stay here and watch. Although she knew that she was doing it for her disciple's sake, Chuman wouldn't understand it, and she couldn't understand it. Zhai Chuman trembled. She would never allow this to happen. Her cultivation method might be a wedding dress, but she wouldn't marry a sect master of such a sect. When she heard about traceless immortal pond's actions, She felt endless disappointment in her heart. She was a person with her own principles. If not, she would have already killed Ning Cheng back at Traceless Gate and taken away the so-called Traceless Gate's position-indicating artifact from Ning Cheng. In fact, not only did she not do it, but she also stopped Bianzhou from doing it. She didn't even take away the spiritual grasses from Ning Cheng. If replaced by most cultivators, they probably wouldn't have done what she did. When she advanced to the Eternal Realm, she vaguely felt that there was something wrong with her cultivation method. Every time she went into seclusion, she would subconsciously change her cultivation method slightly according to her body. In fact, she didn't gain nothing over the years. Given some time, she could turn the wedding dress technique into her own cultivation method, and she wouldn't have to marry someone else. But if Sect Master wanted to dual cultivate with her, all of this would turn into nothingness. But how could she object? Sect Master had saved her life, and everything she had was nurtured by Traceless Immortal Pond. Boom! A loud explosion shook the entire room, and Wu Yuankong stood up with a shocked look on his face. In just a breath, his figure flickered and disappeared from the room. Something happened to Traceless Immortal Pond. Pu Yinxiang and Zhai Chuman immediately understood. However, Zhai Chuman didn't care about what happened to Traceless Immortal Pond, and Pu Yinxiang didn't care too much about it. Traceless Immortal Pond was the largest Starry Sky sect in Demon Domain. Even if something happened to it, it wouldn't be too big. Master, why did you do this? Zhai Chuman looked at Pu Yinxiang and asked slowly. Pu Yinxiang sighed, but her eyes didn't show guilt, but helplessness. Chuman, believe in Master's words. After dual cultivating with Sect Master, cultivate well. Watching her master walk out, Zhai Chuman's eyes showed a hint of sadness. Although she had been trapped in Traceless Gate for so many years, her master's position in her heart had always been irreplaceable. One could say that without her master, there would be no Zhai Chuman. The roar outside grew louder and louder, and Zhai Chuman suddenly felt a little more expectation in her heart. She couldn't understand her own feelings, but she still walked out. Maybe Wu Yuankong walked too fast and didn't care about the restrictions around his cave. Or maybe Wu Yuankong didn't worry about Zhai Chuman leaving Traceless Immortal Pond. Maybe no one could leave Traceless Immortal Pond without his permission. Who the hell are you? As soon as Zhai Chuman came out, she heard the terrifying roar of her sect master. She immediately froze. Traceless Immortal Pond's beautiful Traceless public square had turned into a complete mess. A few immortal-like waterfalls were completely smashed into pieces. Fallen cultivators littered the messy public square. Among these fallen cultivators, even the late-stage Eternal Elder Zhu Yang, who had come to greet her, was among them. Elder Qian Song still had a breath. She sat on the edge of the messy public square and looked at Ning Cheng with soulless eyes. She seemed to want to say something, but in the end, she didn't say anything and fell to the ground, dead. If these weren't the most terrifying things, then what made Zhai Chuman's face turn pale was that 8 of the 9 heaven-connecting array gate pillars that symbolized Traceless Immortal Pond had collapsed. No wonder Traceless Immortal Pond erupted with such a terrifying roar. Someone had smashed the 8 heaven-connecting array gate pillars of Traceless Immortal Pond. One had to know that these 9 heaven-connecting array gate pillars symbolized Traceless Immortal Pond's status. Besides Traceless Immortal Pond, no other sect could arrange these heaven-connecting array gate pillars. A young man in blue robes with a calm expression stood among the shattered heaven-connecting array gate pillars and the debris of the public square. He spoke up with a flat tone, "My name is Ning Cheng." "Ning Cheng, what hatred does my Traceless Immortal Pond have with you? You want to destroy all the heaven-connecting array gate pillars of my Traceless Immortal Pond?" Wu Yuankong's face turned blue, and he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. He hadn't expected that Ning Cheng was the cultivator Traceless Immortal Pond wanted to kill. Ning Cheng showed a slight smile, and the celestial rainbow purgatory spear in his hand shot out again. The violent celestial essence within the long spear caused the surrounding space to explode with "ka" sounds. Although there was nothing in the void except for air, Ning Cheng's spear gave people the feeling that many things in front of it had directly split apart. The celestial rainbow purgatory spear's violent celestial essence slammed into the only remaining heaven-connecting array gate pillar, and another shocking collapse sound erupted. Boom! The heaven-connecting array gate pillar collapsed with a loud bang, and dust splashed everywhere. Ning Cheng held the celestial rainbow purgatory spear and looked at Wu Yuankong, who was trembling with anger. He said calmly, "Now, I'm going to blow up all the heaven-connecting array gate pillars of your traceless immortal pond." "You're wrong." Chapter 8:26. Is that him? Zhai Chuman looked at Ning Cheng in shock. Wasn't this the cultivator who came out of the traceless gate with her? As for why Ning Cheng wanted to blow up traceless immortal pond, Zhai Chuman's heart was as clear as a mirror. She didn't know before, but now she completely understood. She had all kinds of feelings in her heart. Traceless Immortal Pond was her sect, the place where she grew up. But in the face of Ning Cheng destroying her Traceless Immortal Pond and even killing so many cultivators from her Traceless Immortal Pond, she didn't feel any anger. Karma would come sooner or later. Bianzhua and Xiong Wuji, who had rushed out from a distance, also looked at Ning Cheng in disbelief. The two of them had always thought that Ning Cheng's cultivation was far from theirs, but now they realized that it was indeed the case. However, it was not that Ning Cheng was far behind them, but that they were far behind Ning Cheng. Bianzhua's back even broke out in a cold sweat. He suddenly remembered the matter of Ning Cheng poaching away the starry sky's spiritual grasses. If not for Chu Man stopping him, he would have already died under Ning Cheng's spear. Xiong Wuji finally understood the words that Ning Cheng had spoken before. He had originally wanted to teach Bianzhua a lesson, but he had thought that Ning Cheng was just bragging, but now he understood that Ning Cheng did not even have a shred of bragging. "I know, you're the sect master of Grand Culmination's Starry Sky's mysterious yellow sect," Pu Yinxiang exclaimed. She had heard of Ning Cheng because of the auction held in the Devil Domain. At that time, Traceless Immortal Pond had auctioned a Starry Sky radish grass there. At that time, a cultivator named Ning Cheng had taught a lesson to the 3 island masters of Spirit Devil Island. Even Xiao Jierui couldn't do anything to him. It's just that she had never seen Ning Cheng before. Moreover, Ning Cheng's Grand Culmination Starry Sky was too far away from Traceless Immortal Pond. Coupled with the fact that Ning Cheng had nothing to do with Traceless Immortal Pond, he never expected that Ning Cheng would come to Traceless Immortal Pond. "Brother Ning?" Xiong Wuji still felt puzzled as he stepped forward and asked. In his opinion, even if Ning Cheng's cultivation was very powerful, he would not go so far as to destroy someone's academy. Ning Cheng gave a "K" and spoke. "This is a black shop. They know that I have some treasures on me, so they want to kill me and swallow my ring. Since the establishment of Traceless Immortal Pond until now, I don't know how many aggrieved souls have fallen here. Today, I want to do something for these aggrieved souls and earn a little extra money for myself." Traceless Immortal Pond turned out to be such a sect? Xiong Wuji spoke in shock and looked at Zhai Chuman in disbelief. Zhai Chuman felt Xiong Wuji's puzzled gaze and lowered her head in shame. In fact, she was ashamed to have such a sect. Seeing Zhai Chuman's demeanor, how could Xiong Wuji not understand? He raised his hand and brought out a magical weapon before speaking. "Brother Ning Cheng, I, Xiong Wuji, am just like you. I look down on trash academies the most. Count me in for today's event." "Count me in." Bianzhua unexpectedly also brought out his black sword and walked over, which made Ning Cheng feel a little strange. To be honest, he didn't think much of Bianzhua, but he had a good impression of Xiong Wuji. Seeing her 2 best friends supporting Ning Cheng, Zhai Chuman lowered her head and didn't speak. No matter what, she couldn't bring herself to betray her sect. Wu Yuankong's anger slowly calmed down. He knew that no matter how angry he became, Traceless Immortal Pond's 9 heaven-connecting array gate pillars couldn't be restored. Traceless Immortal Pond's traceless public square, the void waterfall, and the magnificent buildings couldn't be restored. The only thing he had to do now was to kill this cultivator. So what if he was the mysterious Yellow Sect's sect master? Even if Demon Domain's Heavenly Emperor Tianji was here, Wu Yuankong would still kill him. He also had the ability to kill him. As for the 2 ants supporting Ning Cheng, he didn't put them in his eyes at all. Wu Yuankong took a step into the void and stood on the public square that Ning Qing had blasted into ruins. The moment he stood there, a powerful domain's imposing aura spread out. The moment Wu Yuankong's feet touched the ground, the piles of broken materials around him automatically scattered into the void. When he stood still, it felt as if a time wheel had blasted through his entire body, leaving behind nothing but debris. Xiong Wuji and Bianzhua in the distance, not to mention helping Ning Cheng, couldn't even stand straight under Wu Yuankong's imposing aura. They could only retreat quickly. Only when they reached the edge of Wu Yuankong's domain did they stop in shock. They couldn't even touch the edge of Wu Yuankong's strength. If they fought against Wu Yuankong, they would have already turned into corpses by now. He's too strong. Bianzhua murmured. Xiong Wuji took in a deep breath but didn't answer. He knew that Bianzhua wasn't talking about Wu Yuankong, but Ning Cheng. Under this imposing aura, they couldn't even approach the edge of Wu Yuankong's domain. However, Ning Cheng stood opposite Wu Yuankong and didn't even move half a step. Only his blue robes fluttered under the confrontation between the two's domains. Moreover, this fluttering wasn't due to Wu Yuankong's domain suppression. Rather, it was a random fluttering. From this, one could tell that Ning Cheng's domain's imposing aura wasn't any weaker than Wu Yuankong's. You're strong, the strongest person I've ever seen. Even Zhang Kong Tianji isn't as good as you. Unfortunately, since you destroyed my traceless immortal pond, I can only destroy you. Wu Yuankong stared at Ning Cheng and spoke with a cold voice. After his domain's imposing aura met Ning Cheng's domain, it didn't gain any advantage. He believed that Ning Cheng, like him, had tried his best. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for Ning Cheng to resist his domain's imposing aura. Ning Cheng replied with a calm voice, "You're indeed stronger than Zhang Kong Tianji. But among the opponents I've fought, you don't even rank in the top 3. As for destroying me, you can talk about it when you're asleep." Ning Cheng truly didn't lie. Whether it was the 9th prince, the red-haired Hong Lun, the eyeless cultivator, or even Chuan Xinlo, none of them were stronger than Wu Yuankong. Wu Yuankong truly didn't rank in the top 3. At best, Wu Yuankong was only a bit stronger than Xiao Jierwei. When Ning Cheng was in the life and death realm, he could defeat Xiao Jierwei and force him to flee. Now that Ning Cheng had advanced to the eternal realm, he truly didn't put Wu Yuankong in his eyes. I hope your means are as powerful as your mouth. Otherwise, you'll regret anything you did in my traceless immortal pond. After Wu Yuankong finished speaking, a powerful domain's imposing aura wrapped around Ning Cheng along with a white circle. After Wu Yuankong's white circle blasted down, the few people standing in the distance could only feel bursts of dazzling white light. They also felt as if endless floodwaters were rolling over. As for what was inside this white circle, no one could see it clearly, let alone Wu Yuankong and Ning Cheng's actions. The white waves slammed into Ning Cheng's domain, suppressing Ning Cheng's domain to the point of cracking. Then, the endless floodwaters came crashing over. Endless fantasy sea. Wu Yuankong stood at the edge of the white circle like a huge statue and waved his hand in the sky. With a wave of his hand, an endless ocean appeared in the sky, sealing off all directions of Ning City. Layers of waves stacked on top of each other, and each wave was hundreds of feet high. This ocean not only sealed off the surrounding space, but it also locked onto Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness and celestial essence. Almost at the same time as the endless ocean sealed off the surrounding space around Ning Cheng, the sea of waves overturned, and the majestic waves started to roll down. At this moment, anything that stood in the way of these raging waves would be blasted into nothingness. Ning Cheng wasn't anything. Wu Yuankong couldn't suppress his domain, so how could Wu Yuankong's fantasy sea spirit technique blast him into nothingness? The celestial rainbow purgatory spear didn't create waves, but spear patterns. As these spear patterns blasted out, a setting sun appeared at the end of the overturned ocean. Spirit technique, sunset's twilight. The rolling waves seemed to have come to a standstill at this moment. Wu Yuankong, who stood at the end of the overturned ocean, had a look of horror in his eyes. No one knew better than him what spirit technique Ning Cheng used. He hadn't seen a laws of time-related spirit technique until now, but he saw it today. This was definitely a laws of time-related spirit technique. Only a laws of time-related spirit technique could make him feel so shocked. As the sun set, dusk arrived. Coupled with the endless rolling waves, Wu Yuankong felt as if he had seen something he yearned for. At this moment, he even wanted to stop fighting and stop struggling. In his mind, he felt that no matter how hard he struggled, he would still end up like the setting sun, slowly falling. No, this wasn't just a laws of time-related spirit technique. This spirit technique also contained a concept that could affect one's mind. Wu Yuankong came to a realization in less than half a breath's time as the sun was about to set. The serene water 9-patterned loop in his hand transformed into one white circle after another and shot out. The raging waves suddenly exploded from the middle, and the 9 white circles all shot towards the celestial rainbow purgatory spear that had already reached his glabella. Bang bang bang. The endless waves exploded, and at this moment, the entire traceless immortal pond turned into an ocean. This ocean completely submerged the traceless immortal pond. This was the first time Wu Yuankong couldn't take back the seawater he blasted out after using the endless fantasy sea. Ning Cheng's mind, which he had condensed within the seawater, had already dissipated. Ning Cheng looked calm on the surface, but he sighed in his heart. His sunset's twilight had only stopped Wu Yuankong's world for half a breath. If it were any other cultivator, he would have already killed the other party within this half-breath. Wu Yuankong's endless fantasy sea was too powerful, and it even affected the timing of his celestial rainbow purgatory spear. If he were at the middle stage eternal realm right now, this spear would have definitely killed Wu Yuankong. Early stage eternal realm, even at the peak, still had a long way to go before reaching the middle stage eternal realm. The power of the endless fantasy sea not only stopped Ning Cheng's celestial rainbow purgatory spear for half a breath, but it also isolated the spatial distance between Ning Cheng and Chuan Xinluo. It prevented Ning Cheng's celestial rainbow purgatory spear from breaking through space and killing Wu Yuankong. Ning Cheng also understood that no matter how powerful Wu Yuankong's endless fantasy sea was, he could only use it once. If he wanted to use it again, he would have to continue filling the white circle with the seawater he refined. Moreover, his sunset's twilight had already scattered the seawater that he had filled up before. Therefore, he couldn't take it back immediately. After the white lines of the serene water 9-patterned loop and Ning Cheng's celestial rainbow purgatory spear collided, Wu Yuankong flew back with a pale face. He never expected that he would be at a complete disadvantage in the first round. Wu Yuankong bit the tip of his tongue, and the ripples of the serene water 9-patterned loop started to distort. Even if he had to burn his essence blood, he would kill Ning Cheng today. Chapter 827. As the distorted ripples formed by the serene water 9-patterned loop spread out, Ning Cheng felt the space within his spiritual consciousness start to disappear. The distorted ripples swept away the space within his spiritual consciousness, forming a void. In this void, his spiritual consciousness and celestial essence automatically melted away. Ning Cheng had seen this kind of situation before. Only when space collapsed would he experience this feeling. This was Traceless Immortal Pond's public square, which meant that it was impossible to find a spatial collapse. Ning Cheng knew that this was Wu Yuankong's laws of space spirit technique. Ning Cheng had also come into contact with the laws of space and could easily tear open a small space within the traceless gate. As soon as Wu Yuankong used his laws of space spirit technique, Ning Cheng understood that his understanding of the laws of space wasn't as good as Wu Yuankong. The void silent spirit technique was Wu Yuankong's most powerful spirit technique, and it could cause everything around him to collapse. As long as one fell into the void created by the serene water 9-patterned loop, no one could resist it. The disappearing space quickly spread out from Wu Yuankong's serene water 9-patterned loop and quickly swept away Ning Cheng's domain before extending in front of Ning Cheng. Ning Cheng didn't understand Wu Yuankong's spirit technique, but his spiritual consciousness couldn't compare to Wu Yuankong's. When the two of them started, Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness had already locked onto the surrounding space. Even if the fluctuations in the space around him were almost non-existent, they couldn't escape his perception. Ning Cheng didn't know that the void created by the serene water 9-patterned loop didn't move in a single direction, but a huge circle that slowly collapsed towards the middle. However, he remained vigilant in his heart. Wu Yuankong was waiting for Ning Qing to retreat. Once Ning Qing retreated, the space created by the serene water 9-patterned loop would collapse completely, forming a void around Ning Qing. At that time, no matter how strong Ning Qing was, his 9-patterned loop would imprison him. The best way to deal with a laws of space spirit technique was naturally the laws of space. Although Ning Qing's understanding of the laws of space wasn't as good as Wu Yuankong, it didn't mean that he couldn't block Wu Yuankong's spirit technique with the laws of space. As for retreating, Ning Qing never thought about it. When Wu Yuankong brought out the Void Silence Spirit technique, Ning Qing's Celestial Rainbow Purgatory Spear brought out countless spear traces. These spear patterns weren't as powerful as Wu Yuankong's Serene Water 9-patterned loop, which could devour space. However, they still managed to create a spatial ravine in front of Wu Yuankong's distorted ripples. Ning Qing had just formed a spatial ravine when the Serene Water 9-patterned loop's twisting ripples slammed into it. The laws of space collided, and celestial essence exploded, tearing open a hole in the void. With Ning City as the center, these hollow traces drew out a huge hollow circle. Space god art? Wu Yuankong sneered. He wasn't surprised that Ning Qing had touched upon a space-related spirit technique. If a cultivator who could cast a law of time spirit technique didn't touch upon a space spirit technique, then he would be surprised. What surprised him was that Ning Qing knew that his void silence spirit technique was aimed at all directions. However, even if Ning Qing also had a space-related spirit technique, he knew that his silence of emptiness could attack from all directions. As such, Ning Qing could not escape from his silence of emptiness. In his opinion, Ning Qing's spatial spirit technique could at most block his void silence for a few breaths. After a few breaths, Ning Qing's spatial spirit technique would completely swallow up his silence of emptiness. Ning Qing's spirit technique wasn't a space-related spirit technique. At best, he could use the laws of space to temporarily block Wu Yuankong's spirit technique. Moreover, Wu Yuankong didn't misread it. Ning Qing could only block it for a few breaths. For Ning Qing, a few breaths was more than enough. What he brought out wasn't the space-related spear pattern, but none to depend on. Sunset's twilight only contained a hint of a concept, but it affected Wu Yuankong. Ning Qing knew that none to depend on was the best choice to deal with a fellow like Wu Yuankong, who had too many distracting thoughts. Time Wheel was a group-killing spirit technique. Although it could break Wu Yuankong's silence of emptiness, it couldn't kill Wu Yuankong. If it alerted this fellow, it might even allow him to escape. People like Wu Yuankong definitely had a way to escape. Once he decided to escape, Ning Qing wouldn't be able to stop him. Only when Wu Yuankong had a chance to defeat him would it be the best time to kill him. The long spear shot out and turned into one Dao charm aura after another. None to depend on, yellow sand rises, on the west wind ancient road, lean horse, long dependence, tears-stained robes. The serene water 9-patterned loop suddenly slowed down, and the speed at which it devoured space also slowed down. Wu Yuankong frowned slightly and stared at the emptiness in front of him. Even if he burned his essence blood, he still felt reluctant to part with her at this moment. He was about to leave. After dual cultivating with Zhai Chuman, he would leave this side of space. Pu Yinxiang's beautiful figure appeared in front of his eyes. He could abandon Zhai Chuman, but he couldn't forget Pu Yinxiang. None to depend on, under the setting sun, the mountain road outside the village rolled up the yellow soil, and the heart looked back. Wu Yuankong slowly turned his head. He wanted to see Pu Yinxiang again. He didn't see Pu Yinxiang. Instead, he saw sadness sweeping across the world. But before he could wake up from this sadness, a boundless murderous aura assaulted him. This was a spirit technique. Wu Yuankong's entire body turned cold. He had unexpectedly immersed himself in the other party's spirit technique. Then, he found that all the space around him no longer belonged to him. He no longer had control over it. Wu Yuankong had never felt so close to death since his debut. At the edge of the traceless public square, the seawater swept over, forcing Pu Yinxiang and the others to retreat. Even with the impact of the remnant Dao charm and celestial essence from the seawater, it still put them in a difficult position. Pu Yinxiang stepped over the spreading seawater and murmured, "This Ning Cheng is too powerful." Only she knew how powerful Ning Cheng was. She had also seen her sect master use the Endless Fantasy Sea. But she had never seen her sect master use the Endless Fantasy Sea and couldn't take back the seawater. But today, facing Ning Cheng, her sect master couldn't take back the seawater after using the Endless Fantasy Sea. Wu Yuankong might lose this battle. Regardless of whether Wu Yuankong lost or not, the traceless immortal pond had already been destroyed. She felt that she should take this opportunity to say some things. Maybe she would have to escape from this place in the future. Bianzhua also sighed, "I thought I could kill him casually. But now I know that he can kill me casually. This person's demeanor is much stronger than mine." Zhai Chuman gave Bianzhua a puzzled look. She had been in contact with Bianzhua for a long time, so she naturally knew about Bianzhua's pride. For Bianzhua to say that the other party's demeanor was much stronger than his, it showed that this Ning Cheng had truly impressed Bianzhua. Seeing Zhai Chuman looking at him, Bianzhua showed a self-deprecating smile and said, "If it weren't for junior apprentice Sister Chuman's kindness, I'm afraid the three of us would have already fallen in the traceless gate." Xiong Wuji remained silent. Apart from saying that he wanted to help Ning Cheng, he didn't say anything else. Pu Yinxiang glanced at Xiong Wuji and suddenly said, "Chuman doesn't know anything about what traceless immortal pond did, so she didn't hide anything from you." When Xiong Wuji heard this, he immediately looked up at Zhai Chuman. Zhai Chuman looked at Wu Yuankong and Ning Cheng, who were still fighting, and said with a sigh, "I'm a person of traceless immortal pond, so I can't escape." Pu Yinxiang sneered, "Chuman, anyone can say that they're a person of traceless immortal pond, but you can't say that." Seeing Zhai Chuman looking at her in confusion, Pu Yinxiang glanced at the surging celestial essence fluctuations in the public square, bit her lip, and said, "Because your father's name is Di Shiluan." "My father?" Zhai Chuman asked in surprise. She had been told that she was an orphan since she could remember. Sect Master Wu Yuankong had adopted her. So how did her master know about her father? Pu Yinxiang took in a deep breath and slowly said, "Yes, it was your father who brought you to Traceless Immortal Pond. When your father brought you here, you were still a baby. Your father wanted to control the laws of space as soon as possible, so he fostered you in Traceless Immortal Pond." Zhai Chuman's hands suddenly trembled. Since her father fostered her in Traceless Immortal Pond, why had she never heard of a father? Pu Yinxiang stared at Wu Yuankong, who was still fighting against Ning Cheng in the public square. She gritted her teeth and said, "Just for fosterage, your father gave Traceless Immortal Pond 10 million permanent essence pills. When you were 12 years old, your father comprehended the laws of space and walked out of the Traceless Gate." Zhai Chuman, who already knew what sect Traceless Immortal Pond belonged to, trembled all over. "Master, you mean my father, he was. Pu Yinxiang nodded sadly. "Chuman, you guessed it right. As soon as your father came out, several elders of Traceless Immortal Pond trapped him with array formations. That battle turned the sky dark. If not for Traceless Immortal Pond's entrapment array trapping your father, I'm afraid your father would have already escaped." Zhai Chuman felt weak all over. She had actually acknowledged a thief as her father and almost married Wu Yuankong. Pu Yinxiang held up Zhai Chuman, who was on the verge of collapsing. "Your father was very strong. Trapped by the entrapment array and besieged by several eternal cultivators, he managed to break out and even killed 3 eternal cultivators. Unfortunately, he ended up trapped by the entrapment array again to find you. In the end, he couldn't get out of the entrapment array a second time and ended up falling in Traceless Immortal Pond. However, Traceless Immortal Pond managed to obtain 12 Eternal Emperor Continuance pills from him. Later, when Wu Yuankong wanted to kill you, I said that it would be better for you to stay and cultivate the wedding dress cultivation method with me. That's why Wu Yuankong spared your life. This time, Wu Yuankong wanted to leave Traceless Immortal Pond. If you had refused his offer, he would have killed you without hesitation. Do you know why Traceless Immortal Pond issued a task to any cultivator who entered the Traceless Gate and brought out a disciple of Traceless Immortal Pond? Do you know why Traceless Immortal Pond issued such a task? It was enacted for your sake. As long as he didn't see you fall, Wu Yuankong wouldn't feel at ease. As for me, I can only keep you alive for one day. I can't do anything else. Zhai Chuman sobbed and collapsed in Pu Yinxiang's arms. But soon she stood up and stared at Wu Yuankong with overflowing murderous intent. Since she started cultivating, she had never thought about killing a person. But today, not only did she want to kill him, but she also wanted to kill him. But before Zhai Chuman could rush up, a shrill voice arrived. Pu Yinxiang and the others stared blankly at the center of the public square as a blood flower blossomed in the air. Chapter 8:28. The Tao runes of various divine arts dispersed, and the center of the square became clear. The previously fragmented traceless square had now turned into a huge circular crater. This circular crater looked like it had been drawn with a compass, without any distortion. Above this circular cavity, Ning Cheng looked like a god standing in the void. He still held a long spear in his hand, with Wu Yuankong hanging from the tip of the long spear. But at this time, Traceless Immortal Pond's sect master had turned into a giant corpse. While the few onlookers were still in a daze, the celestial rainbow purgatory spear in Ning Cheng's hand shook, and Wu Yuankong's corpse turned into slag. At the same time, a ring fell into his hand. Following that, the serene water 9 patterned loop also flew into Ning Cheng's hands. This weapon had a higher grade compared to the celestial rainbow purgatory spear, so Ning Cheng naturally would not let it go. Seeing Ning Cheng step over, Pu Yinxiang muttered, "Traceless Immortal Pond is finished." She didn't know if she was glad or sad. In any case, Traceless Immortal Pond was her sect. But now that Traceless Immortal Pond had been destroyed, she had nowhere to go. Ning Cheng walked to the front of Xiong Wuji and spoke with a smile. "Brother Xiong, I'm leaving, do you want to come with me?" Xiong Wuji sighed. "Brother Ning, I have a problem with my vision. I thought that you were at most in the heaven-seated realm. I didn't expect that I would have to look up to your cultivation. If I weren't a starry sky grade 8 pill emperor, I would have felt that I was a failure." Cultivators like Xiong Wuji naturally had their own pride. However, Ning Cheng's strength was just too much of a blow to his pride. Ning Cheng showed a faint smile but did not speak. If Xiong Wuji knew that Ning Cheng was a starry sky grade 9 pill emperor, Ning Cheng wondered if he would suffer an even bigger blow. However, Xiong Wuji was a cultivator with thick nerves. After speaking a few words, he immediately spoke up. "Brother Ning, I plan to go to your mysterious yellow sect. I don't know if sect master Ning would accept me." Bianzhua, who stood on the side, spoke up with a sour tone. "You said it yourself. You're a starry sky grade 8 pill emperor and have a lot of pride. How could Brother Ning not take you in?" Compared to Xiong Wuji, he was the one who had suffered a blow. In comparison, he was much prouder than Xiong Wuji. Now that he faced Ning Cheng, he realized that his pride was nothing to him. Ning Cheng quickly spoke up, "I would naturally welcome you. My academy also has a person who specializes in alchemy. After elder brother Xiong goes there, you would definitely hit it off with him." Xiong Wuji laughed. "Okay, it's settled then. I can't go now. Junior sister Chuman's sect is in trouble. I have to stay here and help her stabilize the sect. Only then can I go there." Zhai Chuman with red eyes also came over. She bowed to Ning Cheng and spoke with gratitude. "Many thanks, Brother Ning, for avenging my father's death. Chuman can't thank you enough." Seeing Ning Cheng's puzzled gaze, Pu Yinxiang quickly said, "Traceless Immortal Pond plotted against Chuman's father. Chuman didn't know about it before." Ning Cheng already knew that Zhai Chuman had nothing to do with Traceless Immortal Pond's dirty matters. But now that he knew the reason, he quickly said, "We share the same hatred against the same enemy. Killing that fellow is also for my own good. If I don't kill him, he'll kill me. Farewell, I welcome you all to my mysterious yellow sect in the future." After Ning Cheng finished, he didn't wait for the others to speak. He brought out the starry sky wheel and quickly disappeared from the entrance of Traceless Immortal Pond's sect. He had spent a few years here and couldn't wait to go back. Watching Ning Cheng leave, Zhai Chuman gave out a faint sigh and turned to Pu Yinxiang. "Master, I'm leaving too." Pu Yinxiang pulled Zhai Chuman back. If Traceless Immortal Pond had been destroyed and Wu Yuankong was still here, we would have had to leave. Even if we couldn't leave, we would have chosen to leave. But now that Wu Yuankong is gone, Traceless Immortal Pond has no other eternal cultivators except for the two of us. We should stay and cultivate here. That's right, Junior Apprentice Sister Chuman. Traceless Immortal Pond is safe now, and the Starry Sky Spirit Chi is so rich. Why not stay here and cultivate? Bianzhua and I will help rebuild the sect. If I hadn't promised Sect Master Ning, I would have stayed here to cultivate. Xiong Wuji also tried to persuade her. Bianzhua spoke up with disdain. What promise to Sect Master Ning? I'm afraid that you think you're a pill emperor and would be valued by the mysterious yellow sect. Xiong Wuji replied calmly, I'm also proficient in array formations. Pu Yinxiang suddenly sighed. That sect Master Ning Cheng is definitely an expert in the Tao of array close to the Tao of array. Otherwise, even if he was stronger than Wu Yuankong, he wouldn't have been able to shatter a heaven-connecting array door pillar with a single spear. That's right. The guest hall had many entrapment formations, but Brother Ning came out without any damage. If he wasn't proficient in array formations, he wouldn't have been able to do it. Xiong Wuji also recalled. Zhai Chuman felt even more sad. Her father had fallen into Traceless Immortal Pond's entrapment formations and died in Traceless Immortal Pond. Ning Qing naturally didn't worry about stately River Star. With Song Caihe in charge and the star-protecting Grand Array arranged by him, no one would dare to cause trouble. Now that he had comprehended the laws of space, the first thing he wanted to do was to study the teleportation array under Thorntooth Lake. With his current attainments in the Tao of arrays and his understanding of the laws of space, he could almost figure out the teleportation array and advance to the Tao of array. Chasing Bull still controlled the starry sky wheel. Ning Cheng sorted out all the rings he obtained and felt more and more satisfied. Although he guessed that the real cultivation resources of Traceless Immortal Pond should be stored in another place, he had obtained enough things. He had nearly 500 million permanent essence pills and 7-star veins. Moreover, this didn't include a lot of starry sky spirit grasses and various other materials. In addition, he also obtained a breaking boundary talisman from Wu Yuankong's ring, which wasn't any worse than the one given to him by the silver-haired woman. After putting away the things, Ning Qing didn't want to waste time and continued to study the Tao of arrays in the cabin. On this day, Ning Cheng was deducing the model of the teleportation array inside the starry sky wheel cabin when he suddenly sensed some vague array patterns. If it were a few days ago, Ning Cheng wouldn't have noticed this kind of array pattern fluctuation. But because of his comprehension of the laws of space, his attainments in the Tao of arrays had improved by leaps and bounds over the past few days, and he had already touched the edge of array patterns. At this time, the sudden fluctuation of array patterns naturally startled Ning Cheng. Ning Cheng immediately rushed to the deck of the starry sky wheel and swept out with his spiritual consciousness. Master, we've just arrived at the junction between the demon domain and the grand spirit heaven starry sky. Chasing Bull saw Ning Cheng coming out and quickly spoke up. Ning Cheng ignored Chasing Bull's words and asked directly, Did you see any flight-type weapon crossing our starry sky wheel just now? Chasing Bull quickly replied, Yes, 2 flight-type weapons just flew past us. It looks like one person is running away, while the other is chasing after it. Is it the Black Celestial River battleship? Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness had already swept past the Black Celestial River battleship, but the battleship was too far away from him, and the array pattern fluctuations disappeared once again. Yes, Master. Chasing Bull quickly replied. Chase after it. Ning Cheng said without hesitation. The more Ning Cheng studied the Tao of arrays, the more he felt that the Tao of arrays was vast and boundless. Array patterns were most likely something that only the Tao Master of Arrays could come into contact with. Ning Cheng was now infinitely close to the Tao Master of Arrays, which allowed him to sense the array patterns. Okay. Chasing Bull felt very unhappy when it saw the 2 flight-type weapons flying past the starry sky wheel before. If not for its master wanting to go back, it would have already turned around and stopped the 2 airships. Then, it would have arrogantly told the 2 airships that they were ants, I'm the fastest. the starry sky will naturally have the fastest speed. Therefore, under Chasing Bull's rapid pursuit, it stopped the escaping black battleship in less than half an incense stick worth of time. The black battleship seemed to know that it couldn't escape and stopped. A thin man then appeared on the deck of the battleship. Chasing Bull couldn't help but feel contempt for it. This battleship didn't even have any offensive weapons. A moment later, the flight-type weapon also caught up. This flight-type weapon was a silver Celestial River battleship, which looked much higher grade compared to the black Celestial River battleship. Ning Cheng could clearly sense that the array pattern fluctuations came from the black Celestial River battleship. After the silver Celestial River battleship stopped, a male cultivator walked out of the cabin. This male cultivator reminded Ning Cheng of artifact crafting Grand Master Lu Wu, whom he had met in the Eternal Heaven's Starry Sky City. He also had a pointy head and looked a little funny. However, his cultivation was higher than the thin man fleeing in front of him at the late-stage Heaven's Mandate realm. As for the thin man in front of him, he was only at the middle-stage Undead realm. This junior is Liang Chirue, a disciple of Pil Rice Celestial River's Universal Development Sect. I'm currently chasing down a defector. Many thanks for senior's help. The pointy-headed cultivator didn't bother with politeness. Regardless of whether Ning Cheng had helped him by stopping the person he wanted to kill or not, he still wanted to thank him first. The thin cultivator on the black battleship shouted angrily, "Liang Chirue, do you still have any shame? When did my Rainbow Fall Sword Sect's disciple become a defector of your Universal Development Sect?" When Ning Cheng heard Liang Chirue mention Pil Rice Celestial River, he immediately paid attention. He had heard of this Celestial River before. It was a technological Celestial River. He had once participated in an auction, and the auctioneer had specifically mentioned that a Celestial River battleship came from Pil Rice Celestial River. From this, Ning Cheng understood that this Pil Rice Celestial River should be quite famous. Ning Cheng was a nostalgic person. After Sifting Orchid was destroyed to save his master, he had always wanted to restore Sifting Orchid. Although Sifting Orchid was just a lifeless 5-star battle disc, Ning Cheng had said that he must restore Sifting Orchid. He didn't have the time before, but now that he heard about Pil Rice Celestial River, he naturally wanted to go there. Hearing about Pil Rice Celestial River already made Ning Cheng happy. But hearing about Rainbow Fall Sword Sect, Ning Cheng felt even more surprised. He didn't expect to see a disciple of Rainbow Fall Sword Sect in a place so far away from Culmination Grand Starry Sky. However, wasn't this Rainbow Fall Sword Sect established by a cultivator from Graceful Star Mainland? Wait, let me ask you something. Did you just say that you are from Rainbow Fall Sword Sect? Which Rainbow Fall Sword Sect are you from? Ning Cheng asked. When the thin male cultivator heard Ning Cheng's question, he quickly bowed and said, "This junior is Feng Kai. I am indeed a disciple of Rainbow Fall Sword Sect from Pil Rice Celestial River's Sifting Forest Star." I didn't ask clearly. What I want to ask is, who is your sect master? Which interface did your first sect master come from? Ning Cheng asked again. The universe was vast and boundless, and there were many sects with the same name. Chapter 829. Replying to Senior, Rainbow Fall Sword Sect's current sect master is Sect Master Xian Chanshu. My Rainbow Fall Sword Sect's first sect master was Sect Master Luo Chenyu, from Graceful Star. Feng Kong replied respectfully. He could tell that Ning Cheng didn't come here to intercept him. Maybe this senior had a good relationship with Rainbow Fall Sword Sect, which would allow him to escape. Ning Cheng felt happy. Sure enough, this person came from Graceful Star Mainland. He wondered if Rui Baishan had also found this place. Rui Baishan's cultivation was too low. Therefore, he shouldn't have crossed so many starry skies to reach Pil Rice Celestial River. The cultivator from Universal Development Sect who came after him also felt that something was wrong. This senior in front of him seemed to have some relationship with the cultivator's sect he was chasing. Even if he had some relationship, so what? He was a disciple of Universal Development Sect. Thinking of this, Liang Chirue felt relieved and cupped his fists. Senior. Ning Cheng ignored Liang Chirue and looked at Feng Kong. Why did this person chase you? Feng Kong hesitated for a moment before speaking. I was training in the dark swamp floating island when I suddenly received a distress signal from a disciple of my sect. When I rushed over, senior apprentice brother Liang Yi only had time to give me one thing before he died. I had just gotten the thing when this person chased after me. I immediately fled, and he chased after me all the way here. Liang Churue understood that this matter wouldn't end well. He cupped his fists and said to Ning Cheng, "Senior, this person stole something from my Universal Development sect, and I was ordered to take it back. Senior, for the sake of my Universal Development sect, please don't make things difficult for this disciple to recover the sect's item." Ning Cheng had been in the starry skies for a long time, so he didn't need to ask any questions to understand the cause and effect of this matter. A cultivator in Heaven's Mandate realm dared to threaten him with Universal Development sect just to snatch treasures. Not to mention Universal Development sect, he even destroyed Traceless Immortal Pond not long ago. Ning Cheng didn't even bother to answer. He just raised his hand and shot out a celestial essence handprint. Liang Churue didn't even have time to groan before Ning Cheng's handprint smashed him into pieces. Looking at Feng Kong, who stood to the side, Ning Cheng pointed to Liang Churue's flight-type weapon and the ring suspended in the air and said, "You can have these spoils." "Thank you, senior." Feng Kong rushed forward and took Liang Churue's belongings for himself. He naturally knew that while those things were treasures to him, they were probably nothing more than trash to this senior. After putting everything away, Feng Kong bowed again and said, "Senior, if you have any other instructions, I will definitely comply." Ning Cheng felt very satisfied with Feng Rao's quick thinking. Knowing that he did not want to help out casually, he nodded and spoke, "I really do have something that I need your help with. You don't have to worry about it. I also come from Graceful Star's Rainbow Fall Sword sect. We are both from the same academy." Feng Kong felt shocked by Ning Cheng's words. Rainbow Fall Sword sect actually had such a powerful senior like Ning Cheng outside? To be able to reduce Liang Churue, who was in the Heaven's Mandate realm, to dust with a single slap, this person was definitely an expert above the Heaven's Mandate realm. However, he quickly reacted and bowed to the ground. Before speaking, Rainbow Fall Sword sect's disciple Feng Kai greets the sect elder. Since Ning Cheng was from the Rainbow Fall Sword sect, then he would naturally be an elder of the academy. In the future, he might even become a grand elder of the academy. Feng Kong was just a disciple in the undead realm. Therefore, he had to show respect to such an elder. Ning Cheng bowed and motioned for Feng Kong to stand up. "I haven't been to Pillrice Celestial River's Rainbow Fall Sword sect yet. How about this? You give me the map of the Rainbow Fall Sword sect. After I finish my business, I will go to the Rainbow Fall Sword sect." "Yes." Feng Kong took out a jade strip without hesitation, engraved the map of the Rainbow Fall Sword sect, and gave it to Ning Cheng. Ning Cheng put away the map and said, "I still have two things that I need your help with." "Senior, please instruct me." "This disciple will definitely comply." Feng Kong stood with his hands behind his back, looking even more humble. "What did that Liang Yi give you before? Let me have a look." Ning Cheng guessed that the array pattern fluctuations in Feng Kong Celestial River's battleship most likely came from Liang. Feng Kong didn't hesitate and quickly entered the battleship, took out a jade box, and handed it to Ning Cheng. In his opinion, since Ning Cheng was an elder of the Rainbow Fall Sword sect, it was only right for him to give it to Ning Cheng. In fact, he also understood that even if Ning Cheng wasn't an elder of the Rainbow Fall Sword sect, if someone asked him for something, he would have to give it to him. Ning Cheng held the jade box in his hand and felt a strong fluctuation in the array pattern, which made him feel happy. With this array pattern, his understanding of the Tao of array formations would definitely reach a new level. Ning Cheng opened the jade box, and to Ning Cheng's surprise, there was only a faint circular ripple in the jade box. This ripple felt as if it didn't exist, but he could feel it with his spiritual consciousness. Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness seeped into the array pattern and instantly captured a piece of information. This was indeed a high-grade array pattern. Not only could this array pattern help him understand array formations, but as long as he refined these array patterns, These array patterns could also automatically help him arrange array formations. However, this array pattern could only help him once. This was a good thing. Ning Qing immediately closed the jade box. Not to mention whether he could complete the long-distance one-way teleportation array after advancing to the Array Dao Master Realm. With this array pattern, even if he couldn't arrange the teleportation array in the Thorn-Tooth Lake with his own ability, he could still use this array pattern to successfully arrange the teleportation array. This kind of invisible array pattern definitely belonged to an expert who far surpassed him in the Dao of array formations. At the very least, he couldn't refine it. Maybe in a few years, when his Dao of array formations grew stronger, he could also refine this kind of array pattern. Ning Cheng put away the jade box, took out a ring, and handed it to Feng Kong. What you gave me is an array pattern. This thing doesn't have much use for ordinary people, but it's of great use to me. I won't take your things for free. This ring contains 1,000,000 permanent essence pills and an accordance heavenly pill. You can keep it. If Liang Yi has any family members, you can also help them out. Feng Kong almost fainted from the huge bread. 1,000,000 permanent essence pills? Even in his dreams, he couldn't imagine so many permanent essence pills. Even the heaven-seated elders in the sect couldn't have so many permanent essence pills, right? Let alone give it to others. It wasn't until the thing fell into his hands that he realized that it was real. He quickly thanked Ning Cheng with excitement and invited Ning Cheng to the Rainbow Fall Sword sect. I'll go to the Rainbow Fall Sword sect later. I have something to take care of. Tell me, where is the most powerful starry sky battleship in the Pill Rice Celestial River? Ning Cheng wasn't in a hurry to go to the Rainbow Fall Sword sect. Therefore, he naturally wanted to fix Sifting Orchid first. As a cultivator of the Pill Rice Celestial River, Feng Kong naturally knew about the best place to build starry sky battleships. He immediately replied, the most powerful starry sky battleships in the Pill Rice Celestial River come from Old Man Kong He of Grand Nurong Star. Battleships crafted by Old Man Kong He are priceless treasures anywhere. Moreover, they are extremely difficult to buy. Ning Cheng asked in surprise, you said that starry sky battleships are crafted by a single person? Don't many people research, build a production line, and then produce it? In Ning Cheng's opinion, since it was a technological product, it naturally belonged to a company. That company would then develop and produce it before putting it on sale. How could a single person produce a high-tech starry sky battleship? Wouldn't it be the same as crafting artifacts? Feng Kong didn't understand Ning Cheng's words very well, but he understood the general meaning and quickly explained, generally, only a lot of people can build starry sky battleships. For example, apart from Old Man Kong He, the second largest starry sky battleship construction site in the Pill Rice Celestial River is the Surpassing Celestial Battleship Collection. The Surpassing Celestial Battleship Collection has countless people who specialize in starry sky battleship construction, and the things they produce are also first-rate. However, they can't compare to the battleships crafted by Old Man Kong He. I also heard that in the entire technology Celestial River, only Old Man Kong He can craft starry sky battleships alone. I understand. Give me the address of Old Man Kong He and the Surpassing Celestial Battleship Collection. Ning Cheng finally understood that this Old Man Kong He was a heaven-defying existence. Not only did he understand technology, but he was also an artifact crafting powerhouse. He most likely refined those high-tech things through artifact crafting methods. Since he wanted to find someone to repair Sifting Orchid, Ning Cheng naturally wanted to find the best. Old Man Kong He was the most suitable candidate. Senior, that Old Man Kong He has a strange temperament. I'm afraid it would be a bit difficult to ask him to craft a battleship. Feng Kai spoke up euphemistically. What he meant was that if Ning Cheng wanted to craft a starry sky battleship, it would be better to find Surpassing Celestial Battleship Collection. Ning Cheng waved his hand and said, you don't have to worry about it. Just tell me the location. Yes, Senior. Feng Kai naturally didn't say anything else and quickly drew 2 jade strips and handed them to Ning Cheng. After separating from Feng Kai, Ning Cheng immediately arrived at Pill Rice Celestial River's Grand Nursing Star. This was the first time Ning Cheng had come to a purely technological planet. Moreover, it was the premier technological planet in Pil-Rice Celestial River. Standing outside Grand Nursing Star, Ning Chung finally saw the defensive system of a technological planet. Unlike his stately river star, which was protected by a star-protecting Grand Array, Grand Nursing Star was surrounded by light walls. Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness tried to penetrate it and immediately felt the lethality of these light walls. Moreover, they also had a lock-on effect. Although these couldn't cause any fatal damage to him, it was more than enough to defend against some ordinary life and death powerhouses. On the periphery of Grand Nursing Star, there was a public square. Although the public square looked ordinary, Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness had already swept through the countless technological attack weapons hidden around the public square. Radium light arrows, radium light cannons, flowing sky cannons, and so on. There were even many defensive weapons that Ning Cheng didn't know about. Entering Grand Nursing Star's public square, Ning Cheng felt a powerful forbidden space system. It wasn't controlled by array formations. At least, Ning Cheng couldn't find the heart of this forbidden space system. A variety of starry sky battleships parked on the public square, just like a modern city parking lot full of cars. To enter Grand Nursing Star, one also needed to apply for an identity card. But unlike other planets, the identity cards here weren't made of jade but made of a special material. The lowest currency here was purple coins, and other than that, perpetual moon pills. From this, one could see the wealth of Grand Nursing Star. In this place, as long as you had wealth, you could easily enter Grand Nursing Star. Chapter 830. The Great Emperor doesn't forge battleships for others. Please leave. A cultivator with a face like a clay sculpture stopped Ning Cheng and did not even ask what Ning Cheng was doing here. Ning Cheng indeed hadn't spoken yet. He just stood outside Old Man Kong He's cave, admiring the defensive array and the four powerful words Kong He Emperor Mountain. From these defensive arrays, he could tell that Old Man Kong He was not only an artifact crafting expert but also an expert in the Tao of arrays. Moreover, the cultivator who stopped him addressed Old Man Kong He as Heavenly Emperor, and the words Kong He Emperor Mountain showed that Old Man Kong He was also an eternal-level starry sky emperor. How did you know I'm here to craft a battleship? Actually, I'm not here to refine battleships. Ning Cheng spoke up with a helpless tone. He couldn't just leave without even meeting Old Man Kong He. The clay-faced cultivator's tone was still emotionless. Whether you're here to refine artifacts or not, you're not allowed to stay here. Please leave. Ning Cheng was just about to speak when a woman in blue robes landed not too far away. Blue Min Mountain's Lawn E seeks an audience with Senior Kong He. As soon as the azure-robed woman landed, she took out a jade box and handed it to the clay face. At the same time, she cupped her fists and spoke. The clay face took the jade box and opened it. He nodded and said, "Go in." Ning Cheng looked at the azure-robed woman entering the defensive array, and then asked, "Why can she go in, but I can't? Just because she gave him a gift? You should have said so earlier if you wanted to collect the items." While speaking, Ning Cheng also took out a jade box. Stately River Star's Ning Cheng also requests an audience with Grandmaster Kong He. The clay face remained expressionless. "Your item's grade is too low, so I won't accept it. Please return." Seemingly feeling that Ning Cheng's attitude was quite good, this clay figurine's words finally turned a bit more polite, and even added the word, "please." Ning Cheng sneered, "That woman just gave me a refining heart fantasy stone. I wouldn't even bother to pick up such a thing if it was thrown on the side of the road." When the woman in blue robes heard Ning Cheng's words, she immediately stopped. She really wanted to know who said such big words. Did they have any shame? Refining Heart Fantasy Stone was a starry sky grade 9 material and was extremely rare. If it weren't for the importance of upgrading the battleship, she would never have given up this material. This was because she knew that if she took out the materials, it would most likely be a waste of effort. However, as long as there was a chance, she did not want to miss it. The clay face frowned slightly before opening Ning Cheng's jade box. When he saw the contents of the jade box, he nodded and spoke. "The materials are fine, please go ahead." Being able to send out rank 9 artifact crafting materials, even if Ning Qing did not go in, he would have taken the initiative to invite Ning Qing in. As for the entrance gift for meeting Kong He's Grand Master, the lowest grade was a Starry Sky grade 9 raw material. This was a widely recognized rule. Since Ning Qing did not take out the materials, it was obvious that he did not understand the rules. As such, he did not even think about it and let Ning Qing leave. Not everyone could casually take out Starry Sky grade 9 materials. As Ning Qing walked into the defensive array, the cyan-robed female cultivator waiting for him suddenly gave him a smile and spoke. "Dao friend Ning, you were actually willing to give out a purple light treasure eye a moment ago. You shouldn't know that even if you gave him the purple light treasure eyes, you still wouldn't be able to ask Grandmaster Kong He to refine a battleship for you, right?" In her opinion, there was no need to give away purple light treasure essence. Compared to the heart-refining illusion stone, the purple light treasure eyes were much more precious. After all, the former required an artifact crafting powerhouse to fuse it into a weapon. But the latter was a good thing that could directly upgrade Nirvana flames. But then again, even if she took out something like the purple light treasure essence to ask Old Man Kong He to refine a battleship, Old Man Kong He wouldn't even bother to look at it. The reason why she stayed and waited for Ning Qing was that the thing she was about to give out was also a treasure related to the advancement of flames. Moreover, it was a few grades higher than the purple light treasure essence. Ning Qing asked in doubt, "Since you accepted my gift, why didn't you help me refine an artifact? Do you want to accept an overlord's gift? This gift is just a knock on the door. It's just to let you through the door. If you don't have a Starry Sky grade 9 raw material, you can't even enter the door. Even if you came in, you would only have a few opportunities to meet Senior Kong He, let alone ask Senior Kong He to refine a battleship for you." The cyan-robed woman named Lan Yi spoke with a smile. She understood that this was Ning Cheng's first time here, so he didn't understand the rules. If Old Man Kong He were so easy to invite, then this place would have been overcrowded every day. How could it be so quiet? Then how can I invite Old Man Kong He? Ning Qing quickly asked. Lan Yi pointed to a guest room not far in front of them and said, "We have to go in and wait, then take out the best materials and hand them in. Only if Senior Kong He takes a fancy to your materials can he help you refine a Starry Sky battleship. By the way, Senior Kong He only accepts raw materials and doesn't accept permanent essence pills. If not selected by Senior Kong He, then you can only go back the way you came." This Kong He truly was overbearing. Fortunately, he didn't lack any materials. The reason why he took out the purple light treasure essence before was that it didn't have much use for him. Moreover, he had a bunch of top-grade artifact crafting raw materials in his ring, which he really didn't want to take out. Ning Qing and Lan Yi walked into the guest room and saw 2 cultivators with high cultivation standing guard at the door. There were already nearly 10 people sitting in the guest room. Right above the guest room was a teleportation stone platform. Behind the stone platform was a display screen. This was Ning Cheng's first time here. Therefore, even with Lan Yi's explanation, he didn't understand the rules here. But since everyone wanted to wait here, he naturally didn't have any objections. These Starry Sky Emperors, who were proficient in top-grade technology and could even refine artifacts, had all kinds of stinky rules. If not for Sifting Orchid, Ning Qing didn't want to waste time here. Ning Qing didn't have to wait long before a line of words appeared on the display screen in front of the guest room. The materials sent by Zheng Lian are unqualified. Please withdraw from Kong He Emperor Mountain. A yellow-robed man sitting in front of Ning Qing heard these words and his expression turned ugly. After a while, he walked out of the guest room with his head down. After the yellow-robed man walked out, a bald man sitting behind him walked to the top of the guest room and placed a jade box on the stone platform above the guest room. Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness broke through the jade box placed by the bald man and saw a bottle of broken void water inside. To be honest, this kind of material, even Ning Qing was very tempted. It was a top-grade Starry Sky array formation material that could isolate space. The broken void water quickly teleported away. Seeing the slightly anxious look on the bald man's face, Ning Qing couldn't help but smile in his heart. If this old man Kong He really liked artifact crafting, then the amount of broken void water would be more than enough. In just a dozen breaths, a line of words appeared on the display screen in the guest room. Xiang Wenyao's materials are unqualified. Please withdraw from Konghe Emperor Mountain. The bald man's expression turned even uglier than Zheng Lian's. From this, one could tell that this bottle of broken void water was a significant resource for him. Seeing the bald man walk out, and seeing that his materials were not returned, Ning Cheng felt a bit unhappy in his heart. This old man Konghe was a bit shameless. Since someone else's gift was unqualified and he didn't want to help refine a starry sky battleship, he had to return it to that person. Saying that someone else's things were unqualified, and not only did he not want to help, he even confiscated their things. This was too much. This was equivalent to accepting things twice, and he still couldn't do anything. If it were an ordinary material, Ning Cheng wouldn't have felt so angry. But this broken void water definitely wasn't an ordinary material. Moreover, this old man didn't return this material and didn't help refine a battleship. Ning Cheng stood up. No matter how skilled this old man Konghe was, he didn't want this kind of person to help repair Sifting Orchid. Stop. After entering this place, you have to deliver the materials to the Heavenly Emperor before you can leave. What Ning Cheng didn't expect was that when he left the guest room, someone stopped him. Ning Cheng laughed out of anger. Okay, but don't regret letting me stay. Lan Yi and Ning Cheng had exchanged a few words before and knew each other. Therefore, when she heard Ning Cheng's words, she quickly sent a voice transmission to Ning Cheng. Dao friend Ning, you can choose not to refine a battleship here, but don't get into a conflict on Konghe Emperor Mountain. Remember this. Ning Cheng nodded and sat back in his seat. At this time, the words on the display screen changed again. Sa Ma's materials are unqualified. Please withdraw from Konghe Emperor Mountain. Another wild-haired man walked out in disappointment. When he walked out, 2 more people came in. From this, Ning Cheng could tell that this guest room had many people coming in and out. This made Ning Cheng feel a little puzzled. It stood to reason that this old man Konghe was an expert in technology and artifact crafting. This kind of person didn't refine battleships for others because time was precious. If he sat here and looked at materials every day, even if he could obtain a lot of precious materials, it would still be a waste of time. Ning Cheng hadn't figured out this problem yet, but it was his turn. To confirm whether this old man Konghe was swindling materials or not, Ning Cheng simply put in a space crystal with a trace of spiritual consciousness imprint. If even a space crystal containing the laws of space couldn't make this person refine a battleship, then Ning Cheng was 100% sure that this fellow was swindling high-grade materials. Seeing Ning Cheng's jade box teleported away, the cultivator who stood at the door and stopped Ning Cheng showed a trace of disdain. Don't regret it? Didn't you still want to send out the materials? This time, the words on the display screen didn't change. After half an incense stick worth of time, the screen showed a row of words. Ning Cheng's materials are unqualified. Please withdraw from Konghe Emperor Mountain. Ning Cheng sneered and was about to speak when Lan Yi sent another voice transmission. Dao friend Ning, don't be confused. This is not a place to make trouble. Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness fell into the jade box in Lan Yi's hand, and his face immediately showed a surprised expression. He didn't expect that the thing he had been looking for would end up in Lan Yi's hands. He had already forgotten the unhappiness with Konghe Emperor Mountain and smiled at Lan Yi. Dao friend Lan Yi, I wonder if you can let me see the materials you're about to send up? Lan Yi looked at Ning Cheng in a daze. This change was just too fast. Ning Cheng, who had an angry look on his face just a moment ago, immediately turned his attention to her materials. Did he lose his materials and want to make up for it with her materials? But this was Konghe Emperor Mountain. Trying to snatch something was tantamount to seeking death. Chapter 8:31. The materials in your hands are exactly what I need. If you are willing, I can take out what you want in exchange. Ning Cheng earnestly spoke. The material inside the jade box in Lan Yi's hand was none other than the void shimmering light crystal, something that Ning Cheng yearned for even in his dreams. Ning Cheng's celestial river flame was already a grade 5 starry sky flame. If he obtained the void shimmering light crystal, his celestial river flame could advance to a grade 6 starry sky flame. However, this was not the most important thing. The most important thing was that once his celestial river flame advanced to the grade 6 starry sky flame, he could use the Nirvana heart to advance his celestial river flame by another level. Ning Qing didn't know what kind of flame it would be if he upgraded it to a grade 6 starry sky flame. However, he knew that it would surpass the existence of a starry sky flame. It was an existence that surpassed the flames of the starry sky. At least in this dimension, it was unique. As long as his celestial river surpassed the starry sky's flames, he would be able to do a lot more things. He could melt the Nirvana spear and forge a spear that truly belonged to him. Not only that, but his artifact forging and alchemy Dao would also improve to the next level. Lan Yi showed an apologetic smile. I'm sorry. I want to use this material to ask Grandmaster Kong He for help. I need a top-grade starry sky battleship. Ning Cheng suddenly took out a ring and handed it to Lan Yi. Take a look at the things in this ring. If you like it, then we can exchange it. Although Lan Yi knew that she definitely would not exchange it, she still took Ning Cheng's ring. When her spiritual consciousness swept through the contents of the ring, she looked at Ning Cheng in utter disbelief. Ning Cheng actually took out a top-grade flight-type Dao artifact and an Eternal Emperor Continuance pill. Not to mention exchanging these things for her void-shimmering light crystals, she was even willing to give up her ring to Ning Cheng. Not to mention that a top-grade flight-type Dao artifact was more valuable than a top-grade starry sky battleship. Even the top-grade starry sky battleships refined by Old Man Kong He were not as precious as top-grade flight-type Dao artifacts. For this Eternal Emperor Continuance pill, she was willing to pay any price. As a late-stage life and death cultivator, she had struggled at this stage for many years. This time, he asked Grandmaster Kong He to craft the starry sky battleship to search for that trace of chance of eternity. Now that the opportunity to advance to the eternal realm was right in front of her, only a fool wouldn't want to exchange it. I'm willing. Lan Yi did not even think about the consequences and immediately handed over the jade box to Ning Cheng. Ning Cheng's excitement was no weaker than Lan Yi's. He had always dreamed of obtaining the void-shimmering light crystal, but now that he had obtained it so easily, it truly made him feel comfortable. After exchanging things with Ning Cheng, Lan Yi immediately remembered the rules of this place. She quickly took out a jade box and placed it on the stone platform above the guest room. After doing all this, Lan Yi breathed a sigh of relief and spoke to Ning Cheng with a grateful tone. Thank you, Brother Ning. I welcome you to visit my Blue River Mountain in the future. Ning Cheng could easily take out an Eternal Emperor Continuance pill, which made Lan Yi understand that Ning Cheng's cultivation wasn't any lower than hers. With the void-shimmering light crystal, Ning Cheng's anger towards Old Man Kong He dissipated a lot. If it weren't for this old man, he really wouldn't have been able to see such a treasure. Before the two of them could exchange a few words, a row of words appeared on the display screen in the guest room. Congratulations, Dao friend Lan Yi. Your materials fully meet the requirements. Please come in and let Old Man Kong He craft the battleship for you. When this row of words appeared, all the cultivators in the guest room showed envious looks. On average, Old Man Kong He only received 1 or 2 battleship crafting orders every 2 or 3 days. No matter who it was, it all depended on luck. Lan Yi also froze. She didn't expect that the materials she casually took out would actually succeed. But now, she didn't want Kong He to craft a battleship. She just wanted to go back into seclusion and attack the Eternal Realm as soon as possible. While Lan Yi was still in a daze, a gray-robed cultivator came over and said to Lan Yi, Dao friend Lan Yi, please follow me inside. After that, he turned to Ning Cheng and said, Dao friend Ning Cheng, because your materials are also good, Heavenly Emperor Kong He also invited you inside to craft a high-grade starry sky battleship for you. When Ning Cheng heard that Lan Yi had been invited inside, he immediately planned to find an excuse to go in with Lan Yi. But he didn't expect that he would also receive an additional invitation. Initially, Ning Cheng thought that even if Old Man Kong He fancied his space crystal, he wouldn't do anything to him in Kong He Emperor Mountain. At the very least, he would wait until he left Kong He Emperor Mountain before doing anything. After the gray-robed cultivator finished speaking, he left the guest room and turned towards a white jade path. Lan Yi could only follow on seeing this. Ning Qing walked beside Lan Yi and whispered to her, "These people took out top-grade artifact crafting materials. If Old Man Kong he doesn't help them craft artifacts, wouldn't the gains outweigh the losses?" Ning Qing couldn't understand Old Man Kong he's overbearing act. Since the chance of success was so low, why did so many people still come here to deliver things? Lan Yi knew that Ning Qing didn't understand it at all, so she simply replied, "Generally, cultivators who don't know artifact crafting can only obtain some remote top-grade materials. Even if they take them to the auction, they wouldn't be able to sell them for much. As such, they might as well come here to try their luck with Senior Kong He. After all, as long as Old Man Kong He agrees, it would be a profitable thing. A starry sky battleship crafted by Old Man Kong He, even if you don't use it yourself, you can still sell it for a lot of wealth. But wouldn't your void shimmering light crystal be a priceless treasure even if you go to the auction?" Ning Qing felt even more puzzled. Although the breaking void water or the refining heart fantasy stone had no use for ordinary people, the void shimmering light crystal was definitely a treasure that could fetch a high price. Lan Yi sighed and said, "I'm also forced to do this. I heard that Bei Tian's mystic realm opened, and there's even a starry sky radish grass inside. This mystic realm has high requirements for flight-type weapons. If I sold the void shimmering light crystal to buy an ordinary battleship, I wouldn't be willing to do so. Moreover, it's hard to say if an ordinary battleship could fly in this mystic realm. If I sold the void shimmering light crystal through the auction and then bought a flight-type weapon, it would take too long. After thinking about it for a while, I decided to use the void shimmering light crystal to ask Senior Kong He for help. I'm really grateful to you. I got a great deal out of this deal." When the last sentence came out, Lan Yi's mood had completely changed. Obtaining something effortlessly described how she felt right now. Ning Qing finally understood the meaning behind Lan Yi's words. Lan Yi intended to put everything on the line. If the void shimmering light crystal couldn't move Old Man Kong He, she would probably become disheartened and not deliberately pursue the eternal realm. Although Lan Yi said that she took advantage of him, Ning Qing didn't think so. Everyone's needs were different. "Do you think that Old Man Kong He is greedy?" Ning Qing changed the topic to Old Man Kong He. Lan Yi hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I heard that Old Man Kong He wouldn't accept materials if he didn't want to help with crafting artifacts. But later things slowly changed. For this kind of thing, everyone is willing to accept it, but..." Lan Yi swallowed the last few words. Ning Qing clearly didn't want to craft a battleship before, but he still wanted him to hand over the materials before allowing him to leave. This wasn't a matter of being willing to accept it, it was a matter of forcibly accepting things. "Come in." As the two spoke, they arrived at the entrance of an array gate. With this voice, the array gate's restrictions opened completely. After Ning Qing and Lan Yi walked in, they saw a not-so-small public square, which was surrounded by restrictions. In the middle of this public square, there were some battleship materials piled up. Ning Qing felt a little speechless. This place didn't look like a high-tech battleship production place. Instead, it looked more like a garbage dump. An old man with white hair and beard sat on the edge of this public square. This old man was studying a material in his hand. Obviously, this old man was Old Man Kong He. Ning Qing's spiritual consciousness swept over Old Man Kong He and found that Kong He's cultivation wasn't any weaker than Xiao Jierui's. "Are you Ning Qing? Did you take out a space crystal?" Old Man Kong He ignored Lan Yi and looked at Ning Qing for a while before speaking. "Space crystal?" Lan Yi looked at Ning Qing in shock. Only now did she understand what Ning Qing had taken out. A space crystal was much more valuable than a starry sky battleship, right? Yet he used a space crystal to ask Old Man Kong He to craft a battleship. That's right. I believe that a space crystal is enough to buy as many battleships as you want. Old man, you're too greedy. You even said that my space crystal wasn't qualified to ask you for help. By the way, you called me over because I broke your rules and exchanged things in your territory, right? Ning Qing spoke with a sarcastic tone. Old Man Kong He stood up. Previously, no one would have noticed it when he was sitting down. But now that he stood up, he looked like an iron tower. Although he was an old man, he gave off a majestic and robust feeling. Presumably, you're relying on your cultivation. Even if I didn't ask you to come in, you would have fought your way in, right? Old man Kong he looked at Ning Cheng and spoke with a calm voice. Ning Cheng shook his head. No, I wouldn't have fought my way in. I guess you would have chased after me and snatched the rest of the space crystals from me. Old man Kong he raised his hand and grabbed at Ning Cheng. You overestimate your space crystals. In my eyes, those space crystals aren't worth anything at all. Space-related spirit techniques? Today, I'll show you what a space-related spirit technique is. Even if it wasn't aimed at Lan Yi, when old man Kong he grabbed her, Lan Yi felt as if her chest had turned completely hollow, and a feeling of suffocation filled her. The space around Ning Cheng also disappeared under old man Kong he's grasp. If replaced by an ordinary cultivator, they would have struggled in a space that didn't belong to them. This was a powerful laws of space-related spirit technique, which Ning Cheng instantly understood. Ning Cheng had not only fought against several experts with laws of space-related spirit techniques, but he had also touched upon the laws of space himself. Just as old man Kong he wanted to control the surrounding space, Ning Cheng also punched out. It was also a lore-related spirit technique, but it wasn't a space-related spirit technique but a time-related spirit technique. Although old man Kong he wasn't as strong as him, he couldn't underestimate him. Chapter 8:32. The void in the surrounding space hadn't yet formed. But the moment Ning Cheng punched out, everything stopped. As Ning Cheng's fist momentum rolled up, the void created by old man Kong he's hand disappeared completely. Ning Cheng didn't continue. If he continued, this old man Kong he could only wait for death. Laws of time. Old man Kong he exclaimed. Ning Cheng, a young man who didn't seem to pose any threat to him, had actually displayed the laws of time. Even he couldn't touch the edge of the law of time. At this moment, he finally understood why Ning Cheng dared to take out the space crystal in this place. This fellow did not fear him at all. A cultivator who had come into contact with the laws of time, saying that his cultivation was lower than Kong he would never believe it. Lan Yi, who was struggling in the empty space, had just felt her surroundings lighten when she heard old man Kong he speak the words laws of time. If hearing about space crystals was enough to shock her, then when she heard Ning Cheng use the laws of time, she almost thought that she had heard it wrong. As a life and death realm warrior from a big martial school, Lan Yi was naturally not ignorant. She knew very well how powerful and elusive the laws of time were. At least, she had never heard of anyone comprehending the laws of time before. No wonder this Ning Cheng didn't care about taking out the Eternal Emperor Continuance pill. It turned out that he was such a powerful cultivator. You're not my opponent. If I wanted to kill you, it wouldn't take me even half an incense stick worth of time. Ning Cheng stared at Kong he and spoke with a cold voice. Old man Kong he sighed. Yes, I'm not your opponent. It wouldn't take you even half an incense stick worth of time to kill me. Ning Cheng looked at the array formation restrictions on the opposite side of the public square and spoke. Using such a shameless method to collect materials, it should be that silver-robed man, right? Were you coerced by him? Old man Kong he gave out a sigh after hearing Ning Cheng's words. I didn't expect your spiritual consciousness to penetrate the shielding array restrictions on this public square. That's right, I'm not the one who collected these materials. But I'm not being coerced. I'm making a deal with him. After speaking, old man Kong he raised his hand and waved. The array formation restrictions behind the public square slowly opened up like a curtain. Ning Cheng was able to use his spiritual consciousness to pass through the restrictions placed behind the public square. Not only was his spiritual consciousness too powerful, but his understanding of the Tao of array formations was also incomparably powerful. In the face of such a person, Kong he simply didn't have the qualifications to bargain. Rather than waiting for others to punch him away, he might as well take the initiative. After the restriction was removed, an even larger square appeared. In the middle of this public square, two giant starry sky battleships were parked. Even if one did not understand anything about Starry Sky battleships, one would still be able to tell that these two Starry Sky battleships were powerful. Inside one of the Starry Sky battleships, a silver-haired man in silver robes slowly walked over. His expression was ugly, and his body exuded a strong aura. This silver-haired man had a high nose bridge and blue eyes. In Ning Cheng's view, he looked somewhat similar to a Westerner. Kong He, why didn't you ask for my permission? Why did you bring others to this place? The silver-robed man hadn't even arrived in front of old man Kong He when he spoke up in an unhappy tone. Kong He showed a helpless smile and said, "Fu Si, I feel helpless because you took someone else's things." Kong He truly felt helpless. When Ning Cheng's space crystal arrived, Kong He had said that he could take this material, but only if he helped someone craft a battleship. Otherwise, he couldn't take this material. But his partner, Furs, didn't care at all. He wanted the materials and he wasn't willing to help refine the battleship. "Is this space crystal yours?" The silver-haired man named Furs glanced at Ning Cheng and spoke with an indifferent tone. Old man Kong He remained silent. If Furs knew that this young man had used a laws of time-related spirit technique, he probably wouldn't have acted so arrogantly. Ning Cheng smiled. "You're right. This space crystal is mine. You put away my space crystal. Are you planning to wait for me to come out, then stop me and search my body for more space crystals?" Furs also laughed when he heard Ning Cheng's words. "You're good. It's easy to talk to smart people. That's what I meant. You shouldn't have taken out the space crystal." After saying that, Furs deliberately looked at old man Kong He and said, "Kong He, it's not that I don't want to give you face today, but I have to take away this person's space crystal. Don't stop me." Kong He shook his head silently. Even if he wanted to stop him, could he stop him? After Furs finished speaking, he waved his hand, and the entire space around him turned into a wood-attributed aura. The next moment, the space around him slowly hardened, as if it wanted to solidify completely. Even Ning Cheng's domain, under the influence of this wood-attributed aura, began to solidify. Ning Cheng had entered the Celestial Scryer Tower before. Therefore, when Furs made his move, he immediately understood that this was a wood-attributed spirit technique. As long as there was a wood-attributed spirit technique, this wood-attributed spirit technique could pose a threat. Facing Furs, who was slightly weaker than Kong He, Ning Cheng had 100 ways to kill him. Kong He controlled the laws of space. Therefore, this wood-attributed spirit technique had no effect on him. Lan Yi's cultivation was too low, so she ended up imprisoned once again. But this time, it wasn't the emptiness of a spatial hole, but a kind of suppression caused by the solidification of space. Ning Cheng was just about to bring out the time wheel to sweep away Furs' wood-attributed solidification of space when the underworld crow ghost Rot Tan King attached to his wrist began to jump. Since the underworld crow ghost Rot Tan King wanted to fight, Ning Cheng naturally felt happy. The moment it received Ning Cheng's instructions, the underworld crow ghost Rot Tan King stretched out countless branches. These branches wrapped around the space around the two people in a flash. Furs hadn't even used his wood-attributed spirit technique to solidify space when the underworld crow ghost Rot Tan King sucked away the endless wood-attributed aura. The space around them instantly became smooth, and Lan Yi took in a comfortable breath before quickly retreating. Just now, this wood-attributed spirit technique had locked onto her. Not only could she not breathe, but she couldn't even circulate her celestial essence. Facing this kind of power, she didn't want to get trapped again. Underworld crow ghost Rot Tan King? Furs instantly recognized the underworld crow ghost Rot Tan King, and his eyes immediately shone with a green light. The underworld crow ghost Rot Tan King was too important to his family. What would happen if he could take this underworld crow ghost Rot Tan King for himself? As Furs thought of this, wood-attributed Dao charm poured into his wood-attributed spirit technique to solidify space one after another. At the same time, he threw out a black net. He wanted to capture Ning Cheng alive and ask him where the underworld crow ghost Rot Tan King came from. As Furs' wood-attributed Dao charm continued to pour in, the surrounding spatial shackles grew harder and harder. Ning Cheng understood at a glance that the underworld crow ghost Rot Tan King couldn't block it. It wasn't that the underworld crow ghost Rot Tan King couldn't block it, but that the underworld crow ghost Ratan King's grade wasn't high enough. With a wave of his hand, he put away the underworld crow ghost Ratan King. Then, one time wheel after another blasted out. The solidified wood-attributed space, in front of Ning Cheng's time wheel, turned into nothingness. It couldn't even block it for a moment. After the first time wheel blasted through the solidified space, Ning Cheng's domain directly tore through the surrounding wood-attributed solidified space. Bang bang bang. The time wheel, which completely tore through the surrounding solidified space, slammed into Fur's black net. Before the black net could even fall, a tear appeared on it. The time wheel that followed immediately tore the black net into a mess. Poof. The powerful wood-attributed protective domain in front of Fur's finally shattered under the time wheel after time wheel. But before Fur's could bring out a more powerful means, the next time wheel directly turned Fur's lower body into nothingness. Stop, I'm a member of the Fusey clan, you can't kill me. Realizing that he was not Ning Cheng's opponent, and that the surrounding space was under Ning Cheng's control, Fusey truly panicked. Didn't Kong he say that there were no more than 10 people stronger than him in this part of the universe? Why did such a young powerhouse suddenly appear? Ning Cheng sneered. So what if it was the Fur's clan? Wanting to kill him and hoping that he would stop? Dream on. As for the Fur's clan, he had never even heard of it. Another 2 time wheels blasted out, and Fur's could no longer beg for mercy. Except for a ring, Ning Cheng blasted his entire body into nothingness. Just as Ning Cheng was about to put away the ring, he saw a black light roll up the ring and disappear into the sky. Even Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness couldn't catch up with this black light. So fast. Ning Cheng stared in the direction where the black light disappeared in amazement and frowned slightly. After a while, Ning Cheng turned to Old Man Kong He and asked, "Who is this person? Where did he come from?" Old Man Kong He shook his head. "I don't know. His cultivation method is very strange. You easily defeated him, but he most likely didn't put you in his eyes. He came here to find me for cooperation and asked me to help refine the most powerful Starry Sky battleship." Does he also understand Starry Sky battleships? Ning Cheng asked in surprise. He doesn't understand it, but he has a flame that can melt void-returning sifting metal. I also want to refine such a top-grade Starry Sky battleship myself. Unfortunately, I don't have a flame that can melt void-returning sifting metal, so I can only cooperate with him. Kong He replied. Ning Cheng pointed to the 2 leviathans in front of him. The top-grade Starry Sky battleship you mentioned, are these 2? Kong He nodded. Yes, this Starry Sky battleship is better than a flight-type weapon in that it ignores ordinary laws. Even if you pass through a world of various laws, you won't lose the ability to fly because of the restrictions of the laws. If I want to leave this place, I also need such a battleship. I'm responsible for refining it, while he provides the void-returning sifting metal and the melting flame. What's a void-returning sifting metal? What level of flame does it need to melt it? Ning Cheng asked in doubt. He really didn't know anything about void-returning sifting metal. Kong He didn't answer Ning Cheng. Instead, he walked up to one of the battleships and pointed to a piece of cold black iron. This is void-returning sifting metal. Flames below grade 6 Starry Sky can't melt this material at all. Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness fell on this piece of black iron and immediately understood that Kong He was right. His celestial river flame couldn't melt this material before it advanced further. However, he quickly focused his attention on this Starry Sky battleship. This Starry Sky battleship looked just too perfect. The hidden radium light cannons and flowing sky cannons weren't important to Ning Cheng. More importantly, this Starry Sky battleship was a combination of technology and artifact crafting methods. Although Ning Cheng hadn't tried it himself, he knew that this thing could ignore ordinary forbidden space restrictions. Moreover, it could also ignore any kind of spiritual power restriction. Chapter 8:33. No matter how much of a genius Ning Cheng was, without a few thousand years of cultivation, he would not be able to enter the sect. Think about it, how long would it take to become a king refiner? Even with sufficient materials, it would still take countless years, right? If you weren't a king refiner of the inferior artifact, you wouldn't be able to learn his things. Since Old Man Kong he said so, it meant that he agreed to help him complete this Starry Sky battleship. Therefore, it wouldn't be a problem to mention Sifting Orchid at this time. Lan Yi wanted to go back and enter seclusion to advance to the Eternal Realm. But now that Ning Cheng spoke, she quickly took the opportunity to leave. Ning Cheng didn't quite understand Kong He's meaning, but he vaguely understood it. That was to refine the same thing or many materials. However, once the materials were limited, the space for accepting materials would be much smaller, and some of the best materials would be missed. Ning Cheng felt his heart move. He came from a planet with a low-level technological civilization. Not to mention that his cultivation had already reached the Eternal Realm, and he also possessed a starry sky sea of consciousness. Even with his innate talent and understanding, very few people could compare to him. Or else he wouldn't have such accomplishments in the most complicated array path. Old Man Kong he glanced at the pile of materials he had selected and said, "You do have a lot of materials, but if you want me to help you complete this top-grade battleship, it's still far from enough. As for repairing this kind of low-level battle disc, it would only cause me to lose face, as such I will definitely not do it." Kong he glanced at Ning Cheng. "Do you have a spirit rank flame?" Ning Cheng had already used up a lot of these materials, but there were still many more here. Unfortunately, Ning Cheng wasn't an ordinary person. He was a top-grade weapon emperor, and his artifact crafting techniques weren't any worse than Kong He's. It's just that Kong He didn't know about this. If Kong He knew that Ning Cheng was a peak-grade weapon emperor, he would have never let Ning Cheng enter his cabin. This was the result of his countless years of accumulation and painstaking efforts. Even if he helped Ning Cheng refine the battleship for free, he would not agree to let Ning Cheng learn from him. After Ning Cheng entered the cabin, he came to know just how many things were inside the cabin. This wooden house was basically a miniature spatial magic treasure, and there were hundreds of millions of jade slips inside. From the looks of it, the cultivators who brought the materials to Kong He to refine the battleship had made a mistake. The better the materials, the better the chance. This Kong He truly had an eccentric personality. If that's the case, then forget it. For this kind of thing, it was not in Ning Cheng's character to beg Kong He. Pill Rice Celestial River isn't the only one who can repair the Technobattle disc. Ning Cheng didn't expect Kong He to reject him. He immediately spoke up, "Master Kong He, I still have some space crystals here as long as..." Ning Cheng, on seeing Old Man Kong He's eyes glowing, understood that things were about to end. Therefore, he quickly struck while the iron was hot. "Master Kong He, do you think these things are enough? I have another kind of flame that might be able to help." In just over a year's time, Ning Cheng had completely swept through all of these jade strips, without missing even a single one. Not only that, but because of his cultivation method, he also found some problems in the jade strips left behind by Kong He. In order to completely sort out these things, Ning Cheng did not leave the wooden house. Instead, he went into seclusion to sort out what he had learned, while at the same time engraving these questions into some new jade strips. Ning Cheng was very unhappy in his heart. "Since you do not agree to it, then why did you pick out my materials? If you want to take my materials for free, then even you, Kong He, can't do it." Ning Cheng wanted to ask Kong He for help and spoke up helplessly, "Yes, Sifting Orchid is very important to me. But no matter how much it costs, I have to repair it." Kong He shook his head. "You don't understand. There are more than trillions of materials in the starry sky. What I say isn't necessarily the best, but what I see is the best." Ning Cheng felt overjoyed and quickly took out the broken battle disc Sifting Orchid and said, "Master Kong He, I want to ask you to help me repair this battle disc. You don't have enough materials to refine this battleship." Kong He spoke up with a straightforward tone. "Since you don't have a god-grade flame, then don't talk about helping. The void-returning sifting metal here has already been melted down and refined. I don't need your help now." Old Man Kong He spoke up calmly. If it weren't for Ning Cheng's strength, he wouldn't have wanted Ning Cheng to stay in his workplace. Kong He looked at the broken Sifting Orchid in front of him and spoke up with an unhappy tone. "You want me to repair this low-level thing? Master Kong He, since the materials you need aren't necessarily the best, Why don't you just tell me what you need? Ning Cheng asked with some confusion. In Ning Cheng's view, the things he learned about alchemy, array formations, artifacts, talismans, etc., were countless times more complicated than learning about science and technology. Since Kong He agreed to let him learn about it, why would he still ask this old man? Kong He also said that he would study it for a few days, but Ning Cheng didn't care about a few days. Fortunately, Kong He's classification was very clear, from low to high, layer by layer. Ning Cheng didn't take out the jade strips to check them. He knew that with so many jade strips to check, he wouldn't be able to finish reading them even after hundreds of years. His spiritual consciousness fell directly on the first jade strip. Soon, Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness moved from the first jade strip to the second jade strip, the third jade strip, the fourth jade strip. What's a god-grade flame? Ning Cheng asked in confusion. His celestial river flame was at starry sky grade 5, and it hadn't advanced yet. Could it be? After saying this, Ning Cheng raised his hand and was about to put away the materials on the ground when Kong He spoke up at this time. Everything I've learned and a bit of experience is in the opposite room. If you can study it in that room for a few days, maybe after a few days, you can repair your sifting orchid. Even if it's this top-grade starry sky battleship, you can still give it a try. The condition is your materials. Of course, if you don't agree, you can leave. One more thing, you can't copy my jade strips, nor can you take them away. Otherwise, they will shatter. Ning Cheng felt overjoyed. Then many thanks, Master Kong He. I don't know if there are any parts of this battleship that haven't been completed yet. I'm willing to help Master. Ning Cheng didn't care about it. After putting away the rest of the materials, he went straight into a small wooden house across the public square. Thinking of the possibility of leaving Jiangzhou Star, Ning Cheng's heart started to burn with passion for this huge battleship. Master Kong He Fu Si is courting death. He won't be alive to enjoy this battleship. I want to buy it from Master. I agree. Ning Cheng's words had just fallen when old man Kong He raised his hand and took away the materials he had picked out. Ning Cheng didn't ask anything. He had already guessed a few things in his heart. The god-grade flame that Kong He mentioned should be the name of a grade 6 starry sky flame. Ning Cheng had the void-shimmering light crystal and the nirvana heart. It was only a matter of time before his celestial river flame advanced to a god-grade flame. I'm sorry, Fu Si and I have a deal, but I don't have a deal with you. I didn't agree to help you refine this high-level battleship. You can take your battleship, but it doesn't mean that I want to help you improve this battleship. Old man Kong He's tone remained calm. Ning Cheng controlled the laws of time, and he wasn't Ning Cheng's opponent. But as a top-notch master of science and technology and an artifact crafting grandmaster, he had his own pride. In just half a day, Ning Cheng had completely immersed himself in the sea of knowledge contained within these jade strips. It was exactly as Kong He had expected. Sometimes, knowledge was a kind of poison. Once you fell into it, you would start searching for the root. Kong He expected that once Ning Cheng fell into it, he wouldn't give up easily. Blue wave profound root, flying star true stone, chop iron glazed stone, thunder firmament crystal, extreme fire silkworm gold. Kong He's eyes immediately lit up when he saw Ning Cheng's things. At the same time, he quickly picked out dozens of materials from Ning Cheng's pile. Was that really the case? Ning Cheng had previously thought that Kong He was willing to help Lan Yi refine the battleship because Lan Yi wanted to teach Lan Yi a lesson. Or maybe Fu Si, the one he killed, wanted to teach Lan Yi a lesson. Ning Cheng didn't expect that Kong He would really take a fancy to Lan Yi's materials. In other words, it wasn't that the higher the grade of the materials, the better, but the more suitable, the better. Old man Kong He spoke with a calm voice. These are your spoils of war. If you want to take them away, you don't have to tell me. Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness and comprehension ability were just too powerful. The hundreds of millions of jade strips in this room flowed through his sea of consciousness like flowing water. If Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness swept through the jade strips one by one in the beginning, then Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness swept through thousands of jade strips at a time. Every time a jade strip flowed away, it would leave behind the essence within. After Lan Yi left, Ning Qing waved his hand, and piles of materials appeared in front of Kong He. These materials were his spoils of war. Whether it was 9 jewels Starry Sky Emperor Shangguan Fei, or Honglun, or the spoils of war from Traceless Immortal Pond, they were all precious materials. Seeing Lan Yi's embarrassed face, Ning Qing quickly spoke up, "Dao friend Lan Yi, if you have nothing special, please go back first. I'll discuss it with Master Kong He." He had prepared these jade strips for old man Kong He. Ning Qing felt that since he had learned so many good things, he could carve his understanding into jade strips and give them to Kong He as a reward. Moreover, the introductory steps in his jade strips were quite simple. As long as one could learn the basics of artifact crafting, it would be impossible for ordinary people to understand everything. After talking to himself, Kong He directly entered one of the battleships and continued to improve his battleship. The reason why he said that wasn't because he looked down on Ning Qing, but because the things he left behind were different from ordinary technology. His things were a fusion of technology and starry sky artifact crafting. It could also be considered as opening up a new path. It was because he fancied Ning Qing's materials. Otherwise, even if he knew that Ning Qing couldn't learn his things, he wouldn't have let Ning Qing enter that wooden house. Kong He smiled. "Study it for a few days? I hope you can come out after 1,000 years. No, you'll have to come out after 2 years. Because after 2 years, my things will follow me into the void." "You came to me for something else, right?" Just when Ning Qing didn't know what this old man Kong He's attitude was, this old man Kong He took the initiative to speak up. "Senior Kong He, I have a chance to craft a battleship. I want to give this opportunity to Brother Ning." Lan Yi, who stood on the side, interjected. Chapter 8:34. Ning Qing hadn't even finished engraving the jade strip when he felt the space around him fluctuating. He immediately rushed out of the cabin, and the next moment, the cabin turned into a ray of light and disappeared into the void. Did the cabin escape into the void? Ning Qing quickly looked back and saw that only one of the 2 huge starry sky battleships on the public square was still there, while the other had disappeared without a trace. Ning Qing quickly rushed to the battleship belonging to him and took a look. The battleship hadn't been touched, and everything inside was intact. Apart from old man Kong He and his battleship, the cabin filled with information had disappeared from the public square. Ning Qing had sunk into the deduction of the jade strip inside the cabin, so he naturally didn't think about anything else. But now that he relaxed, he immediately understood what was going on. Old man Kong He didn't have a good heart to let him study the technological information inside the cabin. The information inside was a fusion of technology and artifact crafting. Apart from him, a weapon emperor, how many people could fully comprehend the information inside the cabin in 2 years? Even if a weapon emperor went in without his powerful sea of consciousness and comprehension ability, he wouldn't be able to fully comprehend it in 2 years, right? In other words, if an ordinary person entered the cabin, Kong He wouldn't have been able to comprehend the information inside before the cabin was swept away by him. Kong He didn't know that Ning Qing was a weapon emperor, let alone the strength of his sea of consciousness. He thought that Ning Qing, like others, wouldn't be able to comprehend even 1/10,000th of the information in just 2 years. That's why he let Ning Qing enter the cabin. After 2 years, Kong He's battleship was completed, and Kong He left this place on the battleship. Since the cabin was his heart and soul, it naturally followed him into the void. After understanding this, Ning Qing almost raised his middle finger at Kong He in disdain. Fortunately, although Kong He was stingy with his things, he didn't feel disgusted. At least he didn't sweep away the 2 battleships. If Kong He had swept away the 2 battleships, Ning Qing wouldn't have been able to do anything about it. After understanding Kong He's thoughts, Ning Qing no longer thought of returning Kong He's understanding. Ning Qing didn't stay here to finish the nearly completed top-grade Starry Sky battleship. Instead, he put away the Starry Sky battleship and left Kong He Emperor Mountain. With his current ability, he could complete this Starry Sky battleship independently. As for Sifting Orchid, he could perfectly restore his original appearance. After returning to stately River Star, he could slowly do it. Pil Rice Celestial River was the most famous technological celestial river among the four grand starry skies. Most of the planets in this technological celestial river were engaged in production related to science and technology. The most popular products were naturally radium weapons and various types of battleships, as well as planetary space-locking devices. Grand Nurong Star was the most powerful starry sky battleship production planet in Pil Rice Celestial River. In fact, in Pil Rice Celestial River, the starry sky battleships produced by the other planets were also in short supply. The planets in the Pil Rice Celestial River were not 100% technologically advanced, at least not the Sifting Forest Star. The Sifting Forest Star had a large number of starry sky sects. These sects, like the rest of the starry sky planets, mainly focused on cultivating within the starry sky. As for technological means, they only assisted in cultivation. The Rainbow Fall Sword sect was not a big faction in the Sifting Forest Star. Rather, it could only be regarded as a very ordinary faction. Even the sect master, Xian Chanshu, was only a heaven realm cultivator. The most powerful expert in the sect was Elder Yu Bo, who had never left the sect. It was said that he was already at the late stage of the life and death realm, but it was just a rumor. Although Ning Cheng had never been to the Rainbow Fall Sword sect before, he could judge from Feng Kai's weakness against Liang Chirue that the Rainbow Fall Sword sect wasn't a powerful sect in the Sifting Forest Star. But now that Ning Cheng arrived at the Rainbow Fall Sword sect, he felt that his thoughts might have been wrong. The Rainbow Fall Sword sect wasn't small. At least, the territory occupied by the Rainbow Fall Sword sect was quite good. The starry sky spirit chi here was rich, and the surrounding mountains formed a natural defensive array. What surprised Ning Cheng even more was that the entrance of the Rainbow Fall Sword sect was bustling with people coming and going. If it were a makeshift market, Ning Cheng wouldn't have found it strange. But as a sect, all kinds of miscellaneous people came and went. Yet, the two disciples guarding the entrance didn't care about it at all, which made Ning Cheng a little puzzled. Ning Cheng followed the many cultivators coming and going into the Rainbow Fall Sword sect's defensive array. Sure enough, no one came to ask him. Not even a single spiritual consciousness fell on him. Had the Rainbow Fall Sword sect opened up to this extent? Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness directly swept into the sect. Soon he saw the Rainbow Fall Sword Stone. This Rainbow Fall Sword Stone was much bigger than the sword stones in Graceful Star Mainland. Ning Cheng didn't know if Graceful Star Mainland had imitated the sword stones here, or if the sword stones here were imitations of Graceful Star Mainland. The sword stone was the public square of the Rainbow Fall Sword sect. At this time, the public square was filled with countless cultivators. In the middle of the public square, there was also a dueling platform. The dueling platform was sealed by restrictions, and two young male cultivators were fighting a life and death battle on the dueling platform. Sitting directly above the Rainbow Fall Sword sect's sword stone were some of the leaders. Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness swept out slightly and found several eternal cultivators here. Was the Rainbow Fall Sword sect this powerful? Why did they have so many eternal cultivators? Ning Cheng initially thought that this was a duel within the sect. But when he saw another male cultivator directly kill a male cultivator on the dueling platform, he understood that it shouldn't be a dueling platform, but a life and death duel platform. Round 7, Rainbow Fall Sword sect's Shang Yongzhan falls, Constellation sect's Fu Su wins. With the announcement, Ning Cheng realized that Rainbow Fall Sword sect's disciples fought against disciples from other sects, and Rainbow Fall Sword sect lost. Ning Cheng felt that something was wrong. He pulled a Celestial Shatter cultivator next to him and asked, "Friend, I just came here. May I ask why the Rainbow Fall Sword sect's disciples fought against the Constellation sect's disciples?" This Celestial Shatter cultivator felt that Ning Cheng's cultivation was higher than his. So, he didn't dare to neglect and replied, "Friend, you're wrong. It's not a fight between the Rainbow Fall Sword sect's disciples and the Constellation sect's disciples. Rather, it's a fight between the disciples of Rainbow Fall Sword sect, Constellation sect, Scarlet Cloud faction, Green Feather Spirit religion, Void Border Gate, Universal Development sect, and Green Min Mountain. Ning Qing felt even more strange. Since it was a fight between 7 sects, why would the battlefield be at the Rainbow Fall Sword sect? The Celestial Shatter Cultivator whispered, I heard that Rainbow Fall Sword sect's disciples, Liang Yi and Feng Kai, joined forces to kill Universal Development sect's disciple, Liang Chirui. Since Universal Development sect came, Rainbow Fall Sword sect wanted to compensate Universal Development sect. Universal Development sect said that the treasure taken by Feng Kai was extraordinary and asked Rainbow Fall Sword sect to give up the Rainbow Fall Mystic Realm. What kind of place is the Rainbow Fall Mystic Realm? Ning Qing asked with a frown. It's the only cultivation mystic realm of my Rainbow Fall Sword sect. It's also the source of my Rainbow Fall Sword sect's starry sky spirit grasses. This group of people is too shameless. They just want to snatch it. A teeth-gnashing voice rang out beside Ning Qing. Hearing this voice, the Celestial Shatter Cultivator, who had just explained to Ning Qing, quickly squeezed into the crowd and stopped answering Ning Qing's questions. Are you also from Rainbow Fall Sword sect? Ning Qing looked at the young woman in front of him and asked. This young woman's eyes were filled with hatred. She was dressed in a snow-white dress and had a white hair ornament on her head. If one wanted to be beautiful, one had to be filial. This sentence was vividly reflected by this young woman. However, Ning Qing could see that this young woman wore white clothes. It wasn't because she wanted to be beautiful, but because she was in mourning. Just looking at the anger and hatred in her eyes, Ning Qing understood that something must have happened to her loved ones. The young woman glanced at Ning Qing coldly before turning around and walking away without answering Ning Qing's words. Round 8, Rainbow Fall Sword sects Ru Yanhong Falls, Green Feather Spirit Religion's Kong Ku wins. At this time, a voice rang out from the battle ring again. Ning Qing felt that something was wrong. Why did Rainbow Fall Sword sect's disciples fall twice in a row? Rainbow Fall Sword sect already lost 8 people. Do they still want to continue? Someone in the crowd whispered, but Ning Qing heard it. Ning Qing understood that they were bullying Rainbow Fall Sword sect. He quickened his steps and caught up with the pretty young woman in the white dress. He called out, Junior apprentice sister, I'm also a disciple of Rainbow Fall Sword sect. I know Feng Kai. May I ask where Feng Kai is now? The young woman stopped and looked at Ning Qing in doubt. After a while, she frowned and said, Since you're a disciple of Rainbow Fall Sword sect, why don't you know that Feng Kai died? Feng Kai died? Ning Qing asked in shock. Seeing that Ning Qing wasn't pretending, the young woman in the white dress said to Ning Qing, Which peak are you from? Did you just return to the sect, so you don't know what happened to the sect? Ning Qing vaguely guessed that this matter might have something to do with that array pattern. He suppressed the murderous intent in his heart and asked, I'm not a disciple of Sifting Forest Star's Rainbow Fall Sword sect. I'm from Graceful Star Mainland's Rainbow Fall Sword sect. I met Feng Kai 2 years ago. At that time, Universal Development sect's Liang Chirui chased after him, and I helped Feng Kai kill Liang Chirui. Later, Feng Kai gave me something. He said that Rainbow Fall Sword sect's disciple Liang Yi obtained it. I came here just to look around, but now I want to know who killed Feng Kong. So you're the one who took it? The young woman in the white dress exclaimed. What the hell is going on? Ning Qing's tone turned stern. The young woman in the white dress bowed to Ning Qing. Greetings, senior apprentice brother from the sect. I'm Liang Yi's Dao companion, Yun. After Feng Kai came back, he gave me some cultivation resources, and then went into seclusion. I never had the chance to ask him about some things. But a year later, Universal Development sect found my Rainbow Fall Sword sect and forcibly took away Feng Kai. Feng Kai told me about Liang Yi's death before he left. Since then, there was no more news about him. I'm afraid that he has already fallen. I don't think he said that senior apprentice brother took the thing. Otherwise, Universal Development sect would have known about it. Now that 6 sects have besieged my Rainbow Fall Sword sect, I'm afraid that after this battle, Rainbow Fall Sword sect will gradually wither away. Since senior apprentice brother came from the ancestral master's mother sect, you should leave quickly. In Yu Yayun's opinion, since Ning Qing could kill Liang Chirui, who had a heaven's mandate cultivation, then his cultivation must have reached a much higher level than hers. Therefore, it made sense for her to address Ning Cheng as senior apprentice brother. Ning Cheng waved his hand. Let's talk about it later. I just heard people say that the 7 sects are competing against each other. How did it turn into 6 sects besieging Rainbow Fall Sword Sect? Chapter 8:35. Universal Development Sect asked Rainbow Fall Sword Sect to hand over the thing, but Rainbow Fall Sword Sect couldn't. They asked the Rainbow Fall Sword Sect to use the Mystic Realm as compensation, but the sect master naturally did not agree. As a result, Universal Development Sect and Rainbow Fall Sword Sect set up a fight for the Rainbow Fall Mystic Realm, and the sect master couldn't disagree. The Universal Development Sect also invited the Constellation Sect, the Crimson Afterglow Sect, the Green Feather Divine Cult, the Void Border Sect, the Green Min Mountain, and a few other sects to come over, saying that they would be the notary. Ning Cheng interrupted Yu Yayun's words. I don't think the other academies are here to act as notaries. Who had ever seen a sect that acted as a notary send their disciples into the arena to fight? Yu Yayun spoke up in anger. Sect master knows that Rainbow Fall Sword Sect's disciples can't compare to Universal Development Sect's disciples, but he can only agree to it. Elder Lu Yun felt uncomfortable in her heart. She didn't want Universal Development Sect to occupy Rainbow Fall Sword Sect's mystic realm alone. Therefore, she proposed a competition between the 7 sections. Then, based on the outcome of the competition, the number of people from each sect entering the mystic realm would be decided. Originally, Elder Lu Yun thought that the Universal Development Sect would refuse. Once the Universal Development Sect refused, they would offend the other 5 sections. He didn't expect that Universal Development Sect and the other 5 sects had already reached an agreement to join forces to snatch Rainbow Fall Sword Sect's mystic realm. Elder Lu Yun's proposal was exactly what they wanted, which resulted in the 6 factions joining forces to kill the Rainbow Fall Sword Sect's core disciples through a competition. Moreover, the disciples participating in the tournament had to be the core disciples of their respective academies. Moreover, after this fight, he feared that the Rainbow Fall Sword Sect would no longer have any heritage to remain in the Sifting Orchid Star. The competition will be carried out according to the previous rules. Even the sect master has no right to stop this kind of competition midway. Ning Cheng gave a sneer. I'm afraid that after the Rainbow Fall Sword Sect's core disciples were all killed, this kind of competition would automatically stop. I think that these 6 factions not only want the Rainbow Fall Sword Sect's mystic realm, I'm afraid that even the Rainbow Fall Sword Sect would suffer a calamity in the end. Yu Yun gave out a sigh and spoke. Sect Master also said the same thing. After this fight, my Rainbow Fall Sword Sect might not be able to survive in this place. The Universal Development Sect's disciples' death was just a prelude to this. In fact, even without this reason, the other academies would have coveted the Rainbow Fall Sword Sect sooner or later. Since the discovery of the Rainbow Fall Mystic Realm, the factions coveting the Rainbow Fall Sword Sect are not just 1 or 2 factions. You are just a little disciple, how do you know so much about it? Ning Cheng looked at Yu Yayun in doubt. Yu Yayun raised her head and looked at the main stage above the square. She sighed and said, my aunt is the sect head's Dao companion, so I know a lot of things. However, my aunt is only one of the 7 Dao companions of the sect master, so there are many things that I don't know very clearly. Hurry up and leave. We'll meet again. Ning Cheng once again called out to Yu Yayun, who was about to leave. Wait a minute, are you going to fight on the stage? Yu Yayun exuded a deathly aura. It was obvious that she wanted to fight on the stage. Yu Yayun nodded. I'm a core disciple of the Rainbow Fall Sword Sect, so this kind of fight is something that I should definitely participate in. Even if I die, I will kill 1 or 2 to avenge Liang. That's right. We have to repay both grudges and favors. Sometimes, it was hard to repay a debt of gratitude, but it was easy to take revenge. Here, I'll lend you this vine for now. Go up and kill all the core disciples of the other sections. Ning Cheng raised his hand and called out the Underworld Crow Ghost Ra Ten King before handing it over to Yu Yun. The Universal Development Sect had joined forces with the other major sects to bully them through fights. Although their means of fighting were a bit insidious, at least on the surface, they weren't unreasonable. As an eternal cultivator, he naturally couldn't personally kill cultivators in the Celestial Scryer realm or Celestial River realm. Ning Cheng had seen a lot of things in the starry sky where the strong preyed on the weak. If one was stronger than others, then one had to use strength to speak. If one wasn't as strong as others, then one had to endure it. Just like the current Rainbow Fall Sword sect, they had no other choice but to endure. Rainbow Fall Sword sect couldn't move away from the sifting forest star. Even if he went up to the stage and killed all the other sects, it wouldn't help. He couldn't stay in the sifting forest star for the rest of his life. No matter how reasonable the Rainbow Fall Sword sect was, if he wanted to help the Rainbow Fall Sword sect, who would remain here in the future, he had to pay attention to the means. Just like if the other sects wanted to destroy the Rainbow Fall Sword sect by force, the Rainbow Fall Sword sect would have long since perished. Because of this, the 6 major sects, including the Universal Development sect, decided to come up with this seemingly fair method. But in fact, it was a bullying method. Ning Cheng lent the Underworld Crow Ghost Rotan King to Yuyun. Although it seemed fair, it was also a bullying method. Since he wanted to kill the Rainbow Fall Sword sect's core disciple with strength, then he would let the Rainbow Fall Sword sect return the favor with strength. Yu Yayun subconsciously took the 1-inch-long Underworld Crow Ghost Rotan King and asked in doubt, "Is this an Underworld Crow Ghost Rotan?" Ning Cheng nodded. "This Rotan will automatically attach itself to your wrist and help you when the time comes." He didn't explain that this wasn't an Underworld Crow Ghost Rotan, but an Underworld Crow Ghost Rotan King. As soon as Ning Cheng's voice fell, the Underworld Crow Ghost Rotan King turned into a vine mark and attached itself to Yu Yayun's wrist. "Thank you, senior apprentice brother." Yu Yayun bowed. She knew that this senior apprentice brother had an Underworld Crow Ghost Rotan that could attach itself to someone and could even kill Liang Chure. From this, she understood that this senior apprentice brother had at least reached the late-stage Heaven's Mandate realm or even the Heaven-seated realm. "By the way, I have one more thing to ask you. Did the Rainbow Fall Sword sect take away Feng Kai on their own initiative, or did they forcibly take him away?" Ning Cheng asked another question when Yu Yayun was about to leave. An eternal powerhouse from the Universal Development sect came to the sect. Feng Kai knew that even if the sect master took out the lives of the entire sect, he wouldn't be able to stop an eternal powerhouse. Therefore, after telling me some things, he took the initiative to leave with the eternal cultivator from the Universal Development sect. Yu Yayun obviously knew why Ning Cheng asked this question, but she also told him the truth. Ning Cheng nodded. "Go ahead. I'll help you hold the line. Remember to kill as many as you can." Sect Master Xian, the 8th round has already ended. But for the 9th round, Void Border Gate's disciples have been waiting on the stage for quite some time. Why hasn't your sect sent anyone up yet? On the main stage of the Sword Stone Public Square, an elder from the Universal Development sect asked a middle-aged male cultivator sitting not far away. This middle-aged male cultivator was Rainbow Fall Sword sect's Sect Master Xian Chanshu. He truly regretted it now. He felt sure that the other 6 sects wouldn't lose a disciple in every round. Unfortunately, he couldn't watch the battles between the other sects yet. It was because they had already discussed it before the competition. Rainbow Fall Sword sect was the host, so they had to participate in the first 10 rounds. The 7 sects had already signed the agreement, and no sect could withdraw midway. Once they withdrew, the sect would have to immediately leave the Sifting Forest Star. Rainbow Fall Sword sect had spent many generations and a lot of effort to maintain its current state on the Sifting Forest Star. He, Xian Chanshu, didn't have the qualifications to move away, nor did he have the qualifications to withdraw. If he really did so, he would become the biggest sinner of Rainbow Fall Sword sect. "Elder Bao, you underestimate Rainbow Fall Sword sect too much. Didn't a disciple already come on stage? Moreover, it's a beautiful woman." An early-stage life and death middle-aged woman spoke with a smile. In fact, even if she didn't say it, Elder Bao had already seen it. Indeed, someone had come on stage. Not only did someone come on stage, but it was also a beautiful young woman in white. "Yayun." Xian Chanshu's expression changed, and he immediately stood up. The Void Border Gate's disciples on the battle stage were all late-stage Heaven's Mandate realm, while Yuyun was only at the middle stage of Undead realm. The difference was too great. Going up was no different from courting death. But soon he sat down in disappointment. He was a sect master, yet he couldn't stop the death of a core disciple of his sect. It was truly sad. It wasn't that Rainbow Fall Sword sect's disciples weren't as good as others, but that there were too few Heaven's Mandate realm disciples among Rainbow Fall Sword sect's disciples. If Rainbow Fall Sword sect sent out a Celestial Bridge disciple, the other sects would send out an Undead realm disciple. Once Rainbow Fall Sword sect sent out an Undead realm disciple, the other sects would send out a Heaven's Mandate disciple. Occasionally, Rainbow Fall Sword sect would send out a Heaven's Mandate disciple, while the other sects would send out a full-circle Heaven's Mandate or even a half-step Heaven-seated expert. With such a method, no matter how many disciples they sent out, it wouldn't be enough for others to kill. Void Border Gate's Bien Peng, what's this little sister's name? Bien Peng's eyes lit up when she saw Yuyun. Even a part of her body felt a little hot. This kind of woman was what he wanted the most. Even looking at her made him feel comfortable. Yu Yayun's face turned gloomy. She didn't even bother to speak and brought out a cyan sword. The cyan sword had just come out when it turned into countless sword shadows. These sword shadows completely locked down the space around Bien Peng. Rainbow Fall Sword sect's disciples, most of them were sword cultivators. Although Yu Yayun didn't have a sword skill Grand Spirit technique, this sword shadow spirit technique wasn't something ordinary cultivators could compare to. A starry sky cultivator with the same cultivation, in front of a sword cultivator from Rainbow Fall Sword sect, did not have the qualifications to act arrogant. Bien Peng showed a smile. What a hot temper. Today, this big brother will let you know what a man is. As Bien Peng spoke, he brought out a pair of round drums. This pair of round drums, one on the left and one on the right, locked Yu Yayun in the middle. The round drums had not yet sounded, but the vibrations made Yu Yayun feel flustered. Just when Bien Peng was about to drive the round drums, several rattans suddenly appeared out of thin air and completely locked him in place. At this moment, the rattans directly tore apart his domain, while his celestial essence and spiritual consciousness also felt suppressed by the rattans. Yu Yayun felt the suppression around her lighten, and she immediately saw the underworld crow ghost rattan king locking Bien Peng in place. But before she could do anything, the sword shadows she brought out turned Bien Peng into pieces. Even his essence spirit couldn't survive for even half a breath. The entire Rainbow Fall Sword Stone's public square turned silent. This fight had ended too quickly. It seemed that it had ended before it even started. Yu Yayun felt even more shocked. She didn't expect this senior apprentice brother from the graceful star mainland to be so overbearing. Just by lending her a rattan, he instantly killed Bien Peng, a late-stage Heaven's Mandate cultivator. Fortunately, she quickly sobered up and put away Bien Peng's ring. Then, a cluster of flames burned Bien Peng into nothingness. The underworld crow ghost rattan king had long since hidden itself and once again reappeared on Yu Yayun's wrist. At this time, the presiding cultivator reacted and quickly sang, Round 9, Void Border Gates Bien Peng falls, Rainbow Fall Sword sect's Yu Yayun wins. After this song came out, the public square erupted in shock. Some of the low-level disciples of Rainbow Fall Sword sect screamed even louder. After losing 8 rounds in a row, they finally won one. Senior Apprentice Sister Yu is eternal. I will always love Senior Apprentice Sister Yu. All kinds of screams erupted. Even Yu Yayun, who had a murderous look on her face, couldn't help but blush with excitement. She had never enjoyed such treatment before. Initially, she came up to seek death. But she didn't expect that not only would she not die, but she would also help her sect easily kill a person. Even if he knew that he shouldn't show any signs of victory or defeat, Xian Chanshu couldn't help but stand up and laugh. Chapter 8:36. 3 seats away from Xian Chanshu was a short-haired man with a pointy face. When he heard the loud laughter, his face turned ashen. As for the other 5 academies and the disciples of the Rainbow Fall Sword sect, all of them came out unscathed. When it was Void Border Gate's turn, a disciple had fallen. This was simply too much of a slap to their face. Furthermore, he knew that the disciple who was killed was a disciple with great potential from the Void Border School. Such a disciple with such potential had now fallen in the hands of the Rainbow Fall Sword sect for no apparent reason. Before the presiding cultivator could announce the start of the 10th round, a man jumped onto the stage. Xian Chanshu's laughter immediately stopped. He knew this cultivator. It was the Constellation sect's disciple, Fu Su, who killed Rainbow Fall Sword sect's core disciple, Shang Yongzhan, in the 7th round. Seeing that another person had come onto the stage, the host on the side hurriedly called out for the 10th round to begin. The many cultivators below the stage fell silent as they nervously watched the duel between Fu Su and Yuyin. No matter how strong Fu Su was, he had yet to reach the heaven-seated realm. As such, facing the underworld crow ghost Ra-Tan King, it was not enough. Yu Yayan had just brought out her sword shadows and her domain had just collided with Fu Su's domain when the underworld crow ghost Ra-Tan King tore through Fu Su's domain. A few breaths later, the fully activated sword shadow smashed Fu Su into pieces. Fu Su died even faster than Bianpeng. At the very least, Bianpeng had managed to fully extend his domain and bring out more than half of his magic treasures. As for Fu Su, he had only just brought out his magical weapon. Before he could even pose a threat, he was already killed. Yu Yayun stared blankly at the underworld crow ghost Ra-Tan King mark on her wrist. She hadn't even made a move, yet her opponent had already died. This was simply. The cultivator presiding over the match reacted quickly and immediately sang out, Round 10, Constellation Sect's disciple Fu Su falls, Rainbow Fall Sword Sect's Yu Yayun wins. Yu Yayun once again killed Fu Su in an instant. This time, the square was in a complete uproar. In the previous battles, even if one was killed, there was still a process. The 2 battles just now didn't have any process at all, and he was killed immediately. Ning Cheng secretly cursed the underworld crow ghost Ra-Tan King for being an idiot. If this went on, how could he kill any core disciples? He immediately sent a message to the underworld crow ghost Ra-Tan King, asking it to restrain itself from the next fight. If he could kill them in an instant like this every time, his plan would be ruined. He wanted Yu Yayun to go up to kill the core disciples of other sections. Otherwise, he could just go up himself. Why would he need Yu Yayun? The Sword Stone Square was in an uproar, but no one was willing to go on stage to fight anymore. 2 Fate State cultivators had been instantly killed. The other cultivators weren't fools. Why would they go and get themselves killed? No one went up, but some of the sect elders and sect leaders on the main stage were discussing spiritedly. Obviously, Yu Yayun's attack had shocked everyone. She has a very powerful pet beast. It should be something like a vine. It looks like a starry sky grade 7 underworld crow ghost Ra-Tan King. Impossible. What's her cultivation? It can control a starry sky grade 7 underworld crow ghost Ra-Tan King? Using a pet beast like this is no different from cheating. That's right, this is cheating. If our sect allowed our disciples to compete with high-level pet beasts, what kind of competition would it be? Let's just have a beast fight. The various discussions on the main stage made Xian Chanshu's face turn ashen. These sects were simply too shameless. Although he also wondered why Yu Yayun was so powerful, Yu Yayun's use of plant vines to fight the enemy was completely within the rules. It had nothing to do with cheating at all. Sect Master Xian, your Rainbow Fall Sword sect really knows how to cheat. You even used such a high-level pet beast to help your disciples. What's the point of this kind of competition? If you really want to compete like this, then we might as well let our disciples use our sect's top-grade pet beasts. Universal Development Sect's Elder Bao Xian, who had previously ridiculed Xian Chanshu, spoke up again. He knew that Yu Yayun's pet beast wasn't of a low level, but it definitely wasn't a starry sky grade 7 pet beast. Not to mention that Sifting Forest Star couldn't cultivate a grade 7 pet beast. Even if it could, Yu Yayun couldn't control it. Xian Chanshu sneered, if you don't have the guts, just say that you lost. What's the point of making such an excuse? My Rainbow Fall Sword sect lost 8 core disciples in a row, and did you hear me say half a word? Sure enough, when people are shameless, they can say anything. Now, my Rainbow Fall Sword sect's disciples have been waiting on the dueling stage for a while. Why hasn't anyone come up yet? Bao Xian suddenly stood up and overflowed with murderous aura. What's wrong? Is Sect Master Xian here to teach me a lesson? Xian Chanshu's face turned a little pale. He knew that he couldn't compare to Bao Xian. But since this person dared to bully his sect, he naturally wouldn't back down. He also suddenly stood up and said, I don't deserve to teach you a lesson. I'm just stating the facts. Perhaps Elder Bao is right. But whether my Rainbow Fall Sword sect wins or loses, there is no reason to speak of. After saying these words, Xian Chanshu felt as sullen as he could get. The reason why this fight wasn't fair was because Rainbow Fall Sword sect wasn't as strong as others. Ning Cheng felt overjoyed when he saw the conflict on the main stage. As long as Bao Xian dared to take the initiative, he would use his time wheel to turn all the invaders into nothingness. Then he would have an excuse to destroy the other sections. But to Ning Cheng's disappointment, another eternal cultivator called out to Bao Xian. Apparently, this eternal cultivator understood that if he wanted to take over Rainbow Fall Sword sect, he couldn't do so through a tough stance. He had to have a solid reason to do so. Otherwise, he would face endless troubles in the future. Bao Xian's reason didn't hold up at all. After this eternal cultivator called out to Bao Xian, a cultivator standing behind him took the initiative to speak up. Master, Elder Bao, let me handle the 11th round. This time, it all started because of my big brother. I should be the one to take the lead. The eternal cultivator nodded. Qiuqi, you have to be careful. That rattan of hers is a bit weird. If I'm not wrong, it's indeed the Underworld Crow Ghost Rattan King. However, it would be very difficult for the Underworld Crow Ghost Rattan King to advance to Starry Sky Grade 7. That little female cultivator on the dueling platform shouldn't be able to do it. Although he said that Yu Yayun couldn't do it, what he meant was that Rainbow Fall Sword sect couldn't help the Underworld Crow Ghost Rattan King advance to Starry Sky Grade 7. The cultivator who asked to fight bowed and nodded cautiously before stepping onto the dueling platform from the void. Seeing this cultivator step onto the stage, Xian Chanshu frowned. He also knew this cultivator. He was Universal Development Sect's premier genius disciple, Liang Qiuqi. His elder brother, Liang Qirui, was the cause of this incident. According to Universal Development Sect's words, Rainbow Fall Sword sect killed Liang Qirui. Liang Qiuqi's cultivation had already reached the full circle of Heaven's Mandate Realm. With just one more step, he would advance to the half-step Heaven-seated realm, an expert ready to advance to the Heaven-seated realm. Since Universal Development Sect sent a half-step Heaven-seated disciple to fight, Xian Chanshu couldn't say half a word. After Yu Yayun killed 2 people in a row, someone still dared to come onto the stage to challenge her. The Sword Stone public square immediately turned lively. Some of the cultivators who knew about Liang Qiuqi's origins cheered for him even more. Rainbow Fall Sword Sect's disciples naturally also cheered for Yu Yun. Liang Qiuqi didn't make a move as soon as he came up. Instead, he stared at Yu Yayun calmly and spoke with a flat tone. My name is Liang Qiuqi. You have to remember it well. Don't wait until you die without knowing who killed you. Yu Yayun's pretty figure looked like a block of wood in his eyes. He didn't have Bian Peng's lustful look. Yu Yayun's tone was equally cold. You also have to remember that it was my Rainbow Fall Sword Sect's disciples who killed you and your brother. Sure enough, your Rainbow Fall Sword sect killed my big brother. Liang Qiuqi's voice carried a blade-like killing intent. After speaking, he didn't wait for Yu Yayun to answer. Instead, his killing intent domain surged out. The Underworld Crow Ghost Rattan King didn't dare to kill Liang Qiuqi immediately. Therefore, it was a step slower. Yu Yayun's domain felt as fragile as an eggshell under Liang Qiuqi's domain and directly shattered. Before Yu Yayun could even attack, the powerful domain's imposing manner suppressed her and forced her to spit out a mouthful of blood on the spot. Seeing Yu Yayun spurt out blood, the elders of the other sects secretly breathed in relief. It seemed that Yu Yayun wasn't that powerful. As long as they could suppress her rattan, Yu Yayun wouldn't be able to withstand a single blow. Liang Qiuqi also breathed in relief. To be honest, he felt a little afraid of Yu Yayun. But now that Yu Yayun couldn't resist the imposing manner of his domain, he naturally felt a lot more relaxed. While the other sects felt relaxed, the people from Rainbow Falls Sword sect felt their hearts hanging in their throats. Liang Qiuqi raised his hand and brought out a yin-yang 8 trigrams disc. He wanted to suppress Yu Yayun in the shortest time possible and then take her away. Since Yu Yayun knew who killed his big brother, how could he let her go? As soon as he brought out the yin-yang 8 trigrams disc, it turned into 2 yin and yang auras. With Yu Yayun's strength, she couldn't even breathe under the suppression of the yin and yang auras, let alone resist. She couldn't even move her long sword in her hand. At the same time, the underworld crow ghost Rattan King moved. Countless rattan vines spread out and in a short time confronted Liang Qiuqi's domain. The underworld crow ghost Rattan King even managed to resist the yin and yang aura of Liang Qiuqi's 8 trigrams disc. Although Liang Qiuqi was powerful, he couldn't fight against the underworld crow ghost Rattan King. If not for Ning Cheng's instructions, the underworld crow ghost Rattan King would have gained an absolute advantage at this time. Yu Yayun immediately understood that the ghost Rattan King had made a move. Only then did she manage to bring out her sword shadows. The dueling platform quickly filled with endless rattan vines, the yin and yang 8 trigrams aura, and Yu Yayun's sword shadows. Celestial essence explosions erupted, and the yin and yang aura of the 8 trigrams disc slammed into the restrictions on the edge of the dueling platform, creating an astonishing momentum. Whether it was the people on the public square's main platform or the countless cultivators watching the battle below the platform, everyone nervously watched the intense battle taking place on the dueling platform. After experiencing 2 instant kills, the 11th round was finally starting to look presentable. Boom boom boom. The sword shadows waved, and the yin and yang auras crisscrossed. However, the number of rattan vines in the dueling ring kept decreasing. Most of the cultivators watching the battle thought that Liang Qiuqi's yin-yang 8 trigrams disc had already swept away most of the rattan vines. As long as the dueling continued, Yu Yayun's rattan vines would eventually disappear. Even Liang Qiuqi felt that the rattan vines were getting less and less threatening under his attacks. With a snort, he fully stimulated his celestial essence. Now that the time had come, he no longer had the mood to fight against a low-level cultivator like Yu Yayun. Only a few eternal cultivators felt that something was wrong, but Liang Qiuqi still had the upper hand. Just when Liang Qiuqi stimulated his celestial essence and wanted to fight back in one fell swoop, 2 rattan vines suddenly stretched out from under his feet, completely ignoring his domain and completely binding him. These 2 rattan vines seemed to be several times stronger than the previous rattan vines. Even if Liang Qiuqi struggled, he couldn't break free. Not good. Liang Qiuqi had just felt something wrong when Yu Yayun's sword shadows rushed over and tore through his body without any hindrance. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.